Su Qi looked at Long Sun's anxious, uncomfortable demeanor as if sitting on pins and needles. "I'm not even panicked," he thought. "What are you panicking about? This guy, he seems to be on the Universal Bounty List, and his identity is not simple. After all, the Universal Bounty List could be said to be full of shining stars. But in reality, if someone hasn't reached a certain level, no one pays attention. And as for Long Sun, he has something. From the moment he stepped into the land of extreme evil, he maintained his vigilance, especially as he approached the very center. He seemed to fear the distant depths greatly. However, Su Qi did not show it. He just curiously asked, "Universal Bounty List? What is that?" If there were a contest for playing dumb, Su Qi would certainly be the champion. Long Sun, "Don't ask. Let's move on." The two climbed the stairs, and those black-clothed, faceless dark walkers did not notice them. Long Sun finally breathed a sigh of relief once they were out of sight. Meanwhile, Su Qi was muttering to himself, "In our world, generally only the bad guys get bounties. Did you do something bad?" Long Sun. He lowered the brim of his hat, somewhat unable to hide his helplessness, and said, "The Universal Bounty List doesn't differentiate between good or bad, but by value. Anyone with a name can be listed. For many powerful people, it's not just about the bounty. It symbolizes prestige that reflects their worth." "I see." Su Qi. "So, Brother Long, are you on the list too?" Long Sun sighed lightly. "Stop asking. Knowing too much is not good for you or your world. Let's go." Long Sun lowered his hat brim further and went up the side staircase. Upon presenting something that proved his identity, he entered a private room and retrieved stored items. As for Su Qi, he didn't peek. Instead, he began to search for Long Sun's real name on the Universal Bounty List through a card in his hands. His real name was Long Qishuan, but with just a name, it was still difficult to precisely locate him in the vast bounty list. Even if the scope was narrowed down to men of 7th rank, there were still several million such names. Su Qi operated the bounty list card, which could display the various statuses of the Universal Bounty List in real time. He got it from a venerable. The Universal Bounty List is divided into the Extraordinary List and the Sequence List, with the latter being for those below the 5th rank. But just searching has already cost nearly 1,000 spirit coins. Using, viewing, and searching the Universal Bounty List all required spending spirit coins. It seems this is also why the Universal Bounty List continues to exist, because trillions of lives provide the necessary energy. "Forget it. I can't be bothered to look anymore." Su Qi was very interested in Long Sun, and the first time he saw him in the fallen world, he noticed the question mark above his head. Dragon with a secret. And when Long Sun unleashed his strength, Su Qi also clearly felt a hint of a dragon's roar. If it were anywhere else, Su Qi would just be curious. But that world is a world ship fragment, and with the destiny compass added to the mission undertaken with the pigeon god, anyone who appears there is very likely there for a reason. After Long Sun came out of the room, Su Qi didn't ask what he had taken, but just looked at the top of his head. Just retrieved a dragon scale. Long Sun had already put it back into his storage equipment, looking solemn and urgent as if he was under some heavy pressure. This expression looks somewhat familiar, thought Su Qi. It was almost the same look as when Du En awakened his divinity, like being the only person left in class to bear the weighty responsibility of attendance for everyone who skipped. No wonder these two had effortlessly started chatting and rapidly established trust. It turns out there was an air of commiseration and mutual appreciation in their characters. They've already left. Long Sun looked down at the lobby, and after not seeing the faceless dark walkers, he relaxed. "Let's go. We should meet up with the others first." Su Qi followed him while his gaze turned towards the distance, where an extremely dangerous stare was momentarily cast their way from a hidden spot. But it was fleeting. If it weren't for his angel trait and its sensitive premonition of danger, he wouldn't have detected it. Is it aimed at me or Long Sun? Su Qi guessed it was likely the latter, considering he himself had made many powerful enemies. Few individuals would act rashly without a substantial force. Clearly, Long Sun was being watched. Without continuing to peer, Su Chi naturally withdrew his gaze. Whose enemy the other party was, they would soon find out. Long Sun glanced at Su Chi. Why aren't you talking? Are you overwhelmed by all this? Or were you scared by those people just now? Su Chi. Both. You see, I'm as clueless as Tang Xing when he first entered women country. Long Sun. Your analogies are still as incomprehensible as ever. But don't worry, I will guide you all until you complete your first expedition and gain a solid foundation and experience. Only then will I leave. Consider it repayment for saving me. Su Chi raised a finger. You're a pretty good person, you know? Long Sun, being a man of loyalty, was somewhat embarrassed by the praise and unconsciously scratched his head. This reminded Su Chi of the first dragon he encountered. It was in that world of the young girl form of the Master of Destruction, the fire dragon he had once ridden. It had even granted him a powerful AoE skill, Fire Dragon Roar. The fire dragon turned out to be quite gullible. I wonder if the dragon race is also naive and innocent. Su Chi and Long Sun were heading home, moving toward the meeting point they had previously agreed upon. Meanwhile, Su Chi grew more certain of the hidden presence, lurking in the mass of people, stealthily from afar, following them. Their target was Long Sun. Long Sun was oblivious to this. Before the unknown enemy revealed themselves, Su Chi didn't plan to take action. In this special place, he had to temporarily become an invisible person, since it was closely related to the despicable person, and even more intertwined with the evil god. Su Chi preferred to take things slowly before gaining enough of an advantage. Shortly after, they arrived at the gathering spot where everyone else was already waiting for them. Not a single person missing. We've probed a lot of information. Duen couldn't wait to present the gathered information to his own people. The dark zone appears as a spherical abyss, which means it can be entered from all directions. Some paths more dangerous than others, some relatively calm. Bai Yilan pointed in a distant direction. The safest is this area managed by Seven Commerce. Although the region inside is less challenging, most valuable items have been thoroughly fought over and taken by many, but it's suitable for newcomers to this place. Understood. They were exchanging information which was very valuable. Knowing how to act in the land of extreme evil, how to enter the dark zone and seize their own opportunities. Jiang Ji paused. What about you, Su Buxian? Did you discover any new information? Su Chi paused briefly before responding. I found out that 6 kilometers from here, there's an otherworld restaurant where you can order dishes from various worlds, and the prices are quite good. The rest cast their gaze silently towards Su Chi. Massaging his forehead, Jiang Ji said, as the sect hierarch, could you focus on something substantial? My confidence in our impoverished, understaffed sect just dropped again. No worries. There's still room for it to drop. Jiang Ji was almost tempted to leave the sect, wondering if he could get his spirit coins back. He sighed. Besides, I have another piece of news. The land of extreme evil seems to be hosting a grand conference soon. It looks like many top-tier forces will be gathering and attending. The timing, it seems, is in the next week or two. Su Chi mused. A grand conference, huh? Since we, the Hustlers sect, are also a top-tier force, should we attend? Jiang Ji so wanted to hit someone, his head aching. How could you even say that? We don't even have the right to watch from a distance. Clapping his hands, Su Chi interrupted. All right, that's not important. We already have a good understanding of the situation. Let's prepare and start our mission. Jiang Ji pondered over what sort of trap he had fallen into, but he didn't complain any further. After all, they hadn't truly entered the dark zone yet, and their ultimate goal lay there. At this moment, Duan's expression faltered briefly. Let's not rush. We plan to first take some people back to our world. Su Chi nodded, understanding their motives and intentions. All right, go ahead. We'll split up for now. Their true mission wasn't to seek opportunities in the dark zone, but to search for the guardian god's coordinates. And with this trip, Duen and the others had their own plans and didn't want to hold Su Chi and his group back. Duan hurriedly left with his people. Long Sun paused, then looked at Su Qi, Bai Yilan, and Jiang Ji. And you? Will naturally team up with Brother Long and venture into the Dark Zone for an eye-opening experience, Su Qi said with a smile. Long Sun nodded. Let's go. In his eyes, numbers were not the key. After all, based on his experience, anything could happen in the Dark Zone, where having too many people might become a significant disadvantage. Furthermore, he didn't have time to wait. He too had an urgent need to enter the Dark Zone. Let's move. Long Sun led Su Qi and the others toward the direction of the Dark Zone. During this journey, Bai Yilan communicated with Su Qi using spiritual energy. Brother Su, I've probed the situation. Other players have been in here for nearly a week now, but because of the energy outburst in the Dark Zone, their progress isn't that fast. It's just that they made earlier contact with the forces within the land of extreme evil. And some clubs have intricate relationships with many powerful forces. He and Jiang Ji's main direction of investigation was, naturally, the other players' progress on the Paradise side. Jiang Ji paused. I tried to contact the brothers from the Meteor Alliance, but I don't know if it's because of this place or something else. I can't reach the brothers for the time being. Su Qi nodded. Don't worry, take it slow. Let's go take a look at what this Dark Zone is really like. The four of them acted together. They were getting close to the edge of the Dark Zone. Is this the entrance to get in? Jiang Ji muttered as he looked at the churning ripples before him. The entire sky dome seemed to crash into the ground. All turned into a boiling ripple, completely different from the kind he had seen before. Too crazed. Chaotic. Doesn't it feel a bit like a special place from the trials? Bai Yilan said softly. Jiang Ji nodded eagerly. Right. I knew it looked familiar. That means... Su Qi's eyes glossed over. There are countless space cracks and torrents here. And, looking around, Su Qi saw loads of question marks. And a phrase recurring in great abundance. Old fragments, which meant the land of extreme evil was made up of a large number of present world spaces and space fragments that had been drawn here. So this Dark Zone was made up of countless ancient space fragments. No wonder so many people were drawn to it. Even many ancient races and descendants had appeared here. So, the question is now. Su Qi touched his chin, recalling. I remember the first time I went to that world. It was a warm, peaceful town bathed in bright sunshine. How did it become like this? Did the power of the evil god cause such a phenomenon? Or is everything here intentionally gathered? Various questions arose in Su Qi's mind, causing his right eye, his spiritual eyes, to twitch slightly. Su Qi decided not to ponder any further. This kind of twitching was normal. It happened from time to time, signifying that the power of the evil god within the spiritual eyes was stirring. When it wanted to burst forth, one would have to use the world tree withered leaf to suppress it. When it couldn't be suppressed anymore, he would explode with it. Let's go. Long Sun, with his ample experience, said, We must step into the same ripple to enter together, otherwise we will be separated. Also, we might encounter others. Remember to be careful. Understood. The four of them stepped into the same ripple. And just as the four of them entered, several figures flashed like streaks of light, turning into afterimages, and in less than a moment, followed in as well. In the distant rear, black shadows were slowly emerging, seemingly reporting something. The target has entered. And from that side came an indifferent voice. Contact the others in the Dark Zone, and join forces to encircle them. Don't let him escape this time. We must get his secrets. Yes, my lord. And the one referred to as lord was standing at that moment. In the grand central area, surrounded by subordinates full of excellent equipment and strong presence. People around kept their distance, buzzing with discussion. They are from the Star Raider organization. They have extraordinary beings backing them, a terrifyingly powerful bandit organization. Indeed, they were invited to attend the Land of Extreme Evil convention. Yes, but this time, all who can enter are invited by the big powers. The Star Raider organization and some renowned forces are just on the fringe. Just wait, Once the convention starts, who knows what changes it will bring to the current state, the so-called dark zone. The moment Su Qi stepped into the ripples, he felt a sense of familiarity. Personal space, shrouded in darkness, as if falling into the abyss. It feels similar to the time in the anxious land. Everything must be connected somehow, otherwise it wouldn't make sense. However, Su Qi had also learned a great deal about the ancient paradise from the black-haired youth, and naturally knew there were vast, hidden connections behind it. At the same time, Su Qi also had information about the paradise in front of him. Entering the extremely evil world. Please note, the extremely evil world is enveloped by countless mysterious space fragments. The ultimate goal of all players is to reach the core area. The thread of the extremely evil world will change over time. Progression is driven by all life. Current progress is 1%. Reaching 100% will trigger the final event. Please note, all rewards vary according to players' contribution in the progression. Players making significant advancements will receive special awards during the process. Please note, Paradise players who account for more than 5% in the overall progress will have the opportunity to meet an ancient god statue. A question mark popped up in Su Qi's mind. What is this? Not, bro? Counting the time, it's been half a year since this started, and we've only progressed to 1%? Is it because the project funds haven't arrived? Reluctant to start work? However, Su Qi just casually made this commentary. He quickly understood why the progress was so slow. 1. The dark zone is indeed immensely vast. The energy outburst over the past half-year has made it almost impossible to delve deep. Only now it's gradually calming down. 2. The real major powers have not invested much. They seem to be waiting for a mass of worlds to be drawn in, merged, waiting for a large number of life forms to gather. The more life forms that gather and the longer they stay, the more benefits these powers gain. Or perhaps there are other special reasons. Anyway, this progression is too slow. Su Qi also noticed another point, which was that the present world and players pushing forward together reminded him of the content revealed by the black-haired youth. There seemed to be some connection. Su Qi felt it vaguely. Soon, the surrounding ripples seemed to be recovering from their twisted, frenzied state, and the vast darkness started to recede like a tide. Su Qi slowly opened his eyes and saw the surroundings filled with city ruins and scorched earth. A red moon like blood spreading across the sky, and everywhere were corpses, heavy weaponry, and marks of battle. He could smell a strong scent of blood. A no-man's land? A cruel land. Su Qi stretched out his hand and there was a message on the wristwatch. Brother Su. It was a message from Bai Yilan. I'm here. That's good. I've sent messages to Jiang Ji and Long Sun, and we have all received replies. It seems we have indeed entered the same place. Entering ripples could scatter people. Long Sun gave each of them a special communicator which could be used in most spaces within the dark zone. Where are you? We're all quite close and in a safe area. This one's a survivor center, and people here are not surprised by our appearance. Jiang Ji also replied. Long Sun's voice also slowly came through. After entering each space fragment, you will encounter some strange incidents or ancient races that have never been heard of. But don't worry about these. There's only one thing we need to do. And Long Sun paused. That is to find the key of this world, which allows us to open new spaces and make further progress. The form of the key may vary, but there will be significant energy fluctuations, usually controlled by the higher beings of that world. Of course, in addition to the key, there are other items here that you can take and sell. Long Sun explained the process of entering this place based on his own experience. But, Long Sun gently said, valuable items are either very rare or have already been taken by others. After all, as long as the key hasn't been taken, this space remains accessible to others. Bai Yilan mused, I see. Su Qi stroked his chin. It feels like playing Underground City. There should be treasure chests then. Play fewer games, Jiang Ji teased. How could there be such things? Long Sun, actually there are. But it's not a treasure chest. It's within this ancient boundary. There will be some very special entities. They can be foes, friends, or neutral, very quirky and mysterious. Not much information about them. But if you encounter them, you will receive special gifts from them. Gifts? You mentioned there are hostile entities, right? If you provoke them, they will release a curse on you, Long Sun said solemnly. Even if you leave the dark zone, that curse will persist. Bai Yilin, understood. We will be cautious. For now, we'll gather information at the Survivor Center, regroup, and then consider looking for the space key. All right. Su Qi watched as all three logged off and fell silent. Although I know that communicator has its limits. He looked around at the dark, eerie streetscape. But nobody checked with the sect hierarch whether I was also in a safe place. Is that polite? I don't think this looks like a Survivor Center either. Su Qi squatted down and shook the half-body that remained. Buddy, you still alive? If the corpse could see the scene, it would probably spit out a string of ellipses. However, the vigor of Su Qi's shaking was a bit too strong. The weapons magazine fell from the body, hitting the ground with a crisp clinking sound. A flash of silver-white reflection passed through Su Qi's eyes. Raising his eyebrows, he picked it up to take a closer look, murmuring to himself, "Silver bullets, huh?" And furthermore, Su Qi checked the corpse's neck. There are also bite marks. Could it be? Su Qi slowly stood up because, da-da-da-da. He had already heard peculiar sounds approaching from the distant streets, and the black crows occasionally flew over the ruins, making strange calls. In the presence of such sounds, a dangerous and deadly silence seemed to stand out. On the cold, dark streets, only the dim streetlights flickered, and a moon as red as blood illuminated the world. Su Qi stood in the middle of the street. All the surrounding. The next moment, a strange and effeminate voice rose from behind Su Qi, laughing like a specter. "I smell it on you. Blood so sweet it's almost unbearable." Su Qi turned around. Yet he saw no such figure. Showing up on such a night, truly pitiable. "I've nearly lost my appetite to shred you." Su Qi pointed at the corpses scattered around and said, "Like this. You are a delicacy, they are trash. I won't let you end up like this, at least. It will be quite artistic. Quite the connoisseur." It seemed that this whole street was its doing. "Then how exactly do you plan to make me into a piece of art?" Su Qi touched his chin. "I kind of like coriander. Can you make me into the shape of the thinker statue and plant coriander all around me?" This figure probably hadn't expected Su Qi to say such things, and moreover, it was getting angry. What kind of shitty art is that? And that thing called coriander. It's as disgusting as shit. I will drain your blood and then nail you to the wall. So you rot while still alive, letting the crows feast on your decaying flesh. Su Qi could only comment with 2 words. Low end. D. The other party was furious. They didn't hesitate to attack. From behind Su Qi came a ghostly figure, swooping in with a howling assault. Fast as lightning, fangs gleamed coldly in the light of the blood moon. Su Qi didn't even turn around. There was only the sound of a click. Teeth clashed against metal, and as the figure's fangs neared Su Qi's neck, they were blocked by a palm-sized knife. And they didn't budge. The figure was startled for a moment, its claws reaching out and striking towards Su Qi's neck with frightening speed and sharp cold gleams. Su Qi let go of the knife he had been holding. His body calmly leaned back, dodging the swipe of the claws. Another elbow strike. The blade, which had just been bitten, slashed across the figure's mouth and even pierced through it. The opponent seemed shocked. They retreated. Only then did Su Qi glimpse the true face of this figure, whose skin was colorless and frightfully pale, eyes devoid of white, only deep, dark black. The cut from the knife was healing effortlessly. "Vampire?" Su Qi muttered to himself, guessing the creature's race even before it had appeared. But unexpectedly, upon hearing this, the opponent coldly laughed. "I'm a great member of the High Order bloodline." The next moment, His shadow on the ground abruptly elongated. His entire body turned into a blood shadow, rapidly attacking Su Qi. From all around came sharp, hissing laughter. The air was also filled with the scent of blood. This power had reached the 7th rank. Most of the corpses on the ground seemed only to have the power of the 9th rank. Such was the tier of strength in this world. You, with a sneer, the figure spoke, you can't hurt me, and I will turn you into a piece of art. Su Qi slowly ejected a bullet from the magazine he had just used. Let me do it. A minute later, a figure was tied to a street lamp, struggling frantically to no avail. His body and the ground beneath his feet were sprinkled with coriander, and his nostrils and mouth were stuffed full of it. Perhaps that's what his eyes were filled with anger, staring at the man before him. But at that muffled cry, the flavor of coriander seemed to penetrate his lungs, far deadlier than silver, unbearable to him. You'll die a miserable death for doing this to me. This feeble voice reached Su Qi's ears. Su Qi was not surprised. This was the enemy's previously used sonic stealth. What do you mean? You have my scent on you now. No matter where you run, my partners are already on their way, he said with bloodshot eyes, staring fixedly at Su Qi. Wait until you are presented to the Blood King. That will be the start of your despair and agony. Su Qi replied, so the Blood King is your big brother, huh? Let's go. Su Qi lifted him. What are you going to do? I'm going to pay a visit to the docks. Survivor Center. Bai Yilan and the others had also regrouped. Long Sun let out a sigh of relief. From what we can tell, since this is the outer rim of the Dark Road, it's not as difficult as we imagined. The most powerful must be the one the survivors spoke of, the Blood King. He has thousands of bloodline underlings and should also be 7th rank, in possession of the space key. But, Bai Yilan paused, it shouldn't be that simple. This Blood King has extraordinary traits. Silver, which other bloodline fear, has no effect on him. And with an undying body, a single move from him can take away countless lives. And the Blood Moon will provide him with an unending source of strength. The survivors have tried to stop the siege several times, but all attempts have ended in failure. Jiang Ji added, there's nothing we can do, Long Sun said gravely. The key is most likely on the Blood King, and it looks like there are no others from the present world helping, so we'll have to work with these survivors. This was a normal phenomenon. There are countless paths to the core of the Dark Zone, and even if the same ripple is chosen, there are different entrances along the same path. However, as they came together, they would soon meet up with other people. Also, there's another very important point. Long Sun's heart sank. Where's Su Ku? He's been out of touch since just now, and if he's outside, it could be very dangerous. Outside in the night is a slaughter field for bloodline. And today's blood moon was especially full and blood-red, according to what the leader of the survivors said. Today is the day the bloodline are most frenzied and at their most powerful. Many hadn't made it to the sanctuary in time and died outside. And even the survivor center itself is in danger, constantly defending against the bloodline siege. Jiang Ji was also somewhat hesitant, although he complained. He had, after all, joined the creed and was worried. Brother Bai Yiling. Still caring about these things, he had already gotten used to it. He coughed. There shouldn't be any problems. Let's handle things here first. Brother Su's strength had already shown to be very strong a month ago, and they hadn't seen much of Brother Su since. Although it's unknown how much he has grown, as long as he doesn't encounter a swarm of bloodline outside, he'll most likely be fine. Long Sun didn't understand the relaxation of the two. Aren't they worried? After all, any of the bloodline outside could be 8th rank, not to mention the Blood King and his high-order bloodline elite underlings. And on the other side, the Blood King, clad in a bloody trench coat and standing 3 meters tall, was full of bullet wounds. Though healing, he appeared groggy and unkempt. A terrifying fire dragon roaring forth. A Rubik's Cube crushing space, crumbling. And a dark figure suppressing a large number of bloodline. and the burst of strength that was emanating from Su Chi, overpowering, as he lifted the Desert Eagle in his hand. "My apologies, Lord Blood King. Sorry, I'm a bit pressed for time." Su Chi wasn't joking, he was truly in a rush. He was very eager to make a breakthrough to the 7th rank as soon as possible, as the limit of the 8th rank was almost reached. The quantity and quality of his spiritual energy were quickly approaching a critical point, the limit for the 8th rank. To elevate his power to another level, he must only break through to the 7th rank. Of course, there were many reasons for Su Chi's urgency. Firstly, in this land of extreme evil, individuals at the 7th rank were as common as cattle and horses. Ordinary 7th rank individuals in many worlds were the strongest beings. But here, they were just pedestrians seen everywhere, not to mention the Divine Sons, powerful races, descendants, and so on, who were top-tier, formidable combat forces. Secondly, the dead leaf of the World Tree couldn't hold on any longer. Since getting close to this dark zone, the evil god power in Su Chi's pupils became restlessly active. If he didn't make a breakthrough soon and achieve a qualitative change, Su Chi feared he wouldn't be able to suppress it any longer. Thirdly, Su Chi seemed to have stumbled upon the secret of breaking through to the 7th rank. 3 different paths of series that he wanted to advance further on. That was to push all paths to their limits and then violently break through the barrier obstructing them and surge ahead. He needed an outburst at the brink of his limit or combat or life and death. Walking the hardest road, naturally, meant ascending while treading on the edge of a cliff. Just that. Su Chi looked at the Blood King he had just blasted away. This guy is a bit weak. If it weren't for the undying strength of the Blood Moon, he would probably have fallen in a few rounds. Su Chi was quite melancholy. He was now lacking an opponent who could let him go all out, reveal all his cards, and still be silenceable. Never mind. Under the astonished and puzzled gaze of the Blood King, Su Chi directly kicked him fiercely onto the ground. "Buddy, sorry. I'm in a hurry." The Blood King wasn't unkillable. His body contained a blood core that was a fatal weakness but was hidden and protected, and could even be transferred. However, Su Chi didn't care that much, and the dark star in his hand suddenly transformed into a massive silver hammer, ready to bring an end to things once and for all. "Who on earth are you?" The Blood King roared in astonishment and swearing. "I am of the bloodline, with an endless and powerful existence behind me, no matter who you are. If you dare lay a hand on me, my kin will not let you go." Su Chi halted his raised hammer suddenly. He paused. "Do you have other kin?" "Indeed," the Blood King sneered. "Our glorious ancestor of the bloodline is a terrifying being of the 4th rank, commanding numerous powerful races across a multitude of worlds." Su Chi pondered. "That is to say, your race is in charge of this world. Naturally, my people will be arriving soon." The Blood King's expression turned ice-cold. "By then, you will die a miserable death." He wanted to see fear on Su Chi's face, but was disappointed. The other man's expression remained calm, showing no trace of fear. Su Chi spoke gently. "Don't deceive yourself." Su Chi calmly observed as a large hole was blasted into the wall of the entire castle, inside of which were numerous withered blood ponds, and all the ritual patterns were ancient. "If I'm not mistaken, you've tried contacting them countless times through sacrificial rituals, but there's been no response from any powerful beings within your race. Despair from being unable to leave, fear as if you've been abandoned, and confusion about what actually happened." The Blood King clenched its fangs tightly, refusing to admit Su Chi's guess, and was about to curse back. But Su Chi calmly said, "Let me tell you the truth. The powerful race you rely on is highly likely gone. Just as the wild animals might have obliterated your group of bloodline, completely extinct. Throughout the annals of history, numerous races have been wiped out, especially in that final battle, which, according to some information, was almost on the level of world-annihilating destruction. Many gods and ancient beings had no choice but to choose slumber for survival. Beings like the highest-ranked 3rd rank of the bloodline had no news about them in later generations. They had most likely been annihilated in that destruction." "You're talking nonsense." The Blood King furiously rose with blood energy erupting skyward. It's only been a little over a year. How could my race possibly be extinct? Su Chi stroked his chin. It's been over a year since you awakened. For beings like those from closed worlds or ancient races that slumber, they don't feel the passage of time. Because at the moment of their slumber, space-time seemed to stop for them. After their awakening, everything proceeded from where it left off the second before. Duan's world was similar, but since they had communication channels with the outside world, coupled with transactions between the white-haired priest and the venerable of the Abyss Church, the dissonance wasn't strong. But from this Blood King, the feeling was clear. I can only tell you, it is now the present world. Su Chi said gently, countless years have passed since the day of destruction. The Blood King's pupils shook violently, disbelievingly gazing at Su Chi. The present world. It trembled, seemingly unable to accept all of this. Su Chi wasn't surprised. True existences with deep backgrounds, from slumber to awakening to competing in the present world, had a full-service arrangement, clear and straightforward. Whereas most were bewildered as time and circumstances changed, sealed within space fragments and still thinking they were in ancient times. Looking at it this way, the dark zone shouldn't be drawing in a large amount of the old closed spaces. Su Chi mused to himself. That might really hit the jackpot. Not to mention encountering gods, ancient demigods, strong races, and even heroes with widespread fame, all could potentially be encountered. Why has this happened? Why has this happened? The Blood King was still mumbling with his head lowered. Is this all the mental strength you have? Su Chi paused. This guy was full of vigor, so naturally he would take him down. But the Blood King struck first, screaming with a shrill voice. I don't believe it. I need to see it for myself. But the next moment, the huge hammer Su Chi had prepared already came crashing down. The terrifying spiritual energy directly smashed him into the ground. The entire castle was trembling severely, on top of the signs of the previous battle. It was already on the verge of collapse. Let's forget about it. Su Chi squatted next to the Blood King, who had been smashed into a patty, only his half-severed arm weakly exposed. You don't look very capable of going out right now. I'll check it for you. Su Chi reached out and took the ring from the Blood King's fingers. That was the object that had been emitting slight spiritual energy fluctuations. A space key. Su Chi held it in his hand, feeling a slight ripple. All right, it's time to move on. Su Chi got up and walked slowly away, with the fire dragons soaring around reflecting the bodies of the bloodline members, and the shadow army slowly fading. The area gradually returned to darkness and silence. But after Su Chi left, there was a slight tremor in the exposed arm. A blood core inside was pulsing. The Blood King had not died. He roared inwardly. That was close, really close. If I hadn't reacted quickly, the blood core would have been completely destroyed before I could transfer it. Fortunately, he didn't notice. The Blood King was trembling inside. This guy is terrifyingly strong. Could all the people of future generations be so monstrous? Anyway, first I need to survive. Then once he leaves, I'll sacrifice all the survivors and open the way out. Its arm broke free from the bloodied flesh, using its fingers to crawl on the ground, preparing for a faster recovery under the blood moon. At the same time, it also saw the miserable scene outside, felt apprehension. That guy single-handedly took care of the bloodline subordinates it had painstakingly nurtured, but no matter, as long as it could get out there, it could continue. It was preparing to recover its body when... Wait, why was it feeling a chill, using spiritual energy to probe? But it detected nothing, as if only feeling locked by something strange. And the next moment, a bullet shot from nowhere. It went straight through the blood core that it had barely preserved. It's strange. There were quite a few bloodline members wandering the streets earlier, but now they seemed to have decreased. The leader of the Survivor Center, looking puzzled at the outside, said gravely, "This is unusual. It's very possible that they're organizing an attack." Long Sun, however, put his hand on his shoulder. "Don't worry. Be fearless. Now we'll make a plan. If we can hold off until daylight, we will have time to counterattack. In this world, night and day each last for 48 hours, which provided them an opportunity. If they could hold off until daylight, they could counterattack into the enemy's castle. That would be the moment when their enemy's strength was at its weakest. He sighed. The only thing is I don't know where Suku has gone. Long Sun knew it was Suku who had saved him at that time, and he often chatted with him, although every time he would either be left dizzy or speechless, but he could feel that he was a good person. It would be a pity if he had died here. Bai Yilin said, "You don't seem to need to worry about that." He looked into the distance. Brother Su has already appeared. Su Qi was strolling leisurely from the devastated streets toward this location. The leader of the Survivor Center watched the figure approach. That's the companion you mentioned. He was actually alone outside. Quick, open the gate. Long Sun also went straight to the gate. Su Qi looked around and muttered to himself, "Looks like you all are fine. Firstly, we should be the ones saying that, and secondly, why do I detect a hint of disappointment in your tone?" Jiang Ji couldn't help but retort. "Because I'm the only one who had to work overtime late into the night." Su Qi calmly looked at Long Sun. "If we find the space key, how do we open the next space?" Long Sun hadn't expected Su Qi to suddenly ask this. He paused, then pondered. "It's simple. The key will guide us. Just reach a specific place and it can open the ripples. However, I haven't found any clues yet, but it's highly likely on the Bloodline side. We can only confirm this by first helping the Survivor Center get through this night. Is it that troublesome?" "Troublesome." Long Sun shook his head. "This is already quite clear, and there are no shortcuts on the path to opportunities." Long Sun suddenly froze because Su Qi threw a ring over. "What is this?" Jiang Ji was also startled. "Why does it have energy fluctuations?" "A space key." Long Sun was surprised as soon as he took it. "How did you get it?" "A buddy gave it to me." Su Qi said, "Anyway, now that we have the key to move on to the next space, there's no need to linger here. Brother Long, find the entrance to the next space." Long Sun, "Okay." He was a bit baffled. Honestly, they had been discussing the counterattack plan for a long time here, then searching for clues about the key, as this place demanded extreme caution, with many having perished here. But who would have thought? It's been less than an hour, and the key was already here. Bai Yiling. He silently watched Su Qi, secretly using spiritual energy to communicate. "Brother Su, what did you do?" "Nothing, really. A buddy gave it to me." "Which buddy?" "Guess." Bai Yilin seemed to have realized something. Watching Su Qi's figure, his eyes were complex. Although their own hustler sect had no background, no money, and few people, their sect hierarch seemed unbelievably powerful. After confirming that the bloodline had vanished from the outside, Long Sun quickly found the ripples using the ring's guidance. With a slight touch of the ring, a vast splendor emerged, small ripples expanding until they formed a passage. Jiang Ji eyed the passage, hesitating. "Are we just going to leave like this?" "What? Were you planning on settling down and starting a family here? What about those survivors? Without our help?" Bai Yilin placed a hand on his shoulder. "Don't worry. They'll be fine. We can only act as passers-by. The formation of the ripples passage is brief, and the key has a cooldown. Once it's used, we won't know when it can be used again." Long Sun paused. "Also, I've instructed the leader. I'll leave the key here and have given them the method. Next, they can use the ripples here to leave if they find the opportunity." He sighed. "Although it seems cold-hearted, this is the way it has to be here. Each space fragment has its situations, and if we tried to attend to everything, we'd have to be saints." There's one more thing Long Sun didn't mention. Although his words sounded harsh, in reality, he quietly left an item for the leader to use against the powerful Blood King and his subordinates. Of course, if Su Qi knew, he'd only question. "Why not give it to me? Let's go. I can only say this is just the beginning." Long Sun looked solemnly ahead. "Next, we may encounter others. Of course, Be cautious and avoid provoking major forces or descendants of powerful races. And if we encounter a truly dangerous world where we can't proceed, we better not take risks and just return to Extreme Evil City. The group stepped into and at the Survivor Center, as the dense fog slowly dissolved the darkness with the whitish sky. Their probe team appeared on a distant hilltop of the castle, somewhat bewildered and shocked, unsure what to make of everything in front of them. Hey, did you see that? The bloodline. They're all dead? What about the Blood King? Look at that mass of flesh. Doesn't it look like? Ripples in fluctuation were completely dark. Every time he passed through the portal of ripples, it was like plummeting into the anxious land, where opening one's eyes would only meet infinite darkness, with his body being propelled by the twisted ripples. No means could counter this darkness. Of course, except Su Qi. Snap! Su Qi snapped his fingers. A bunch of starfire pushed back all darkness, but the brightness of the starfire was only enough to illuminate Su Qi's face. Not enough. Su Qi raised his hand, and instantly numerous starfires emerged around him. Although these starfires caused no harm and only provided light without consumption, cooldown, and had an eternal presence, these features made them exceedingly Bug-like. And, with the growth of my strength, the number of starfires I can create instantly is also rapidly increasing. With a snap of his fingers, he could make the number of starfires around him reach tens of thousands. When will a snap of the fingers be able to form a size of a meteor? That would be quite impressive. And now, starfires crazily surged around Su Qi for free, and the eternal light stubbornly squeezed through the surrounding black fog, gathering together and penetrating the vast distance. Is this the outline of the dark zone? He seemed to be able to see numerous fragments of worlds amidst the endless ripples, dotted like stars. At the same time, he could also see countless fragments at the center, a place akin to a dark abyss, seemingly with numerous colossal figures, their outlines prominent. And these figures, vaguely perceptible, extremely remote, merely a glance from afar caused the surrounding black fog to tremble, as if detecting the surveillance here, madly surging, trying to annihilate this abundance of starfire. But the light of the starfire was eternal and inextinguishable. Unless Su Qi actively dismissed it, even this mad darkness could still not annihilate it. Su Qi was quickly engulfed by darkness, as his body was twisted and pulled away by the ripples. Only a large amount of starfire remained twinkling here. However, the information he needed was already obtained. When Su Qi regained his senses, he also heard the noisy wind around him. Opening his eyes, this time he was together with Long Sun and they were all plummeting crazily. And the temperature around was very high. Looking down, he could see the lava. Long Sun yelled over the wind. I forgot to tell you guys. Ripple's portal may appear anywhere, so be mentally prepared. Long Sun was very accustomed to high altitudes, his eyes looking downward. Below are quite a few volcano groups, and there's even one supersized volcano. The so-called supersized volcano had an erupting mouth like an abyssal giant mouth. Inside it was even penetrating like the high-temperature magma of a red giant star. This height wasn't much for them, and they soon one by one landed steadily on the ground. But at the same time, everyone extended their spiritual energy, their expression solemn. Such high temperature! Their spiritual energy consumed 10 points of spiritual energy per second, a speed sufficient to understand the terrifying temperature. Jiang Ji looked around. This world seems to be an uninhabited fireball. With such temperature hardly anyone could survive for long. Bai Yilin also nodded. If that's the case, we just need to find the space key under these extreme temperatures. This was quite comforting, as sometimes the presence of people is the source of contradiction and danger. An extreme world was relatively comforting for them. Don't speak too soon. Xiao Jiang, little Bai. Su Qi stretched out a hand and touched the stones on the ground. There are traces of life activities here, and a battle happened not long ago. He could tell the difference not through a question mark, but with his own geological knowledge. Long Sun's nose twitched. He seemed to have a more sensitive perception of life. Indeed, there's a scent of beings. I have a bad feeling. We better get the key quickly and move to the next world. As for the key, Su Chi softly said, actually, no need to search. Su Chi looked towards the largest volcano nearby. Just now when we were plummeting, inside that largest volcano mouth, there was a giant mineral emitting energy fluctuations. Most likely the key is inside. Long Sun paused. He hadn't expected Su Chi's perception of spiritual energy to be even more sensitive than his own. He was not an ordinary person. Then okay, let's go and check. They arrived at the volcano mouth. The supersized volcano had a huge rift, its diameter seemingly in the thousands of meters. It's hard to imagine what kind of scene it would be once it erupts, murmured Jiangji. That would certainly be apocalyptic, Bai Yilan gently said. But, since there are signs of life activities, this volcano must not have erupted for a long time. Su Chi paused. Not necessarily, according to geological indications. This volcano has been very active recently. Ancient space fragments, an extreme ancient world, waking up after a slumber. The accumulated power might possibly erupt again soon. But, never mind, let's get the space key first. The team prepared to approach, pulling out all their defensive equipment. As they got closer to the dreadful volcanic mouth, the extreme temperature became even more outrageous, forcing their spiritual energy to burst forth, with consumption increasing drastically. Su Chi looked at everything here. This was an extreme ancient world like hell itself with its volcano groups and high temperatures, where an ordinary person would be burnt to death in less than a minute. However, just as they were approaching the mineral, Long Sun suddenly frowned. Wait, there's something stirring. Suddenly, from the surrounding cliffs, various red stones began to converge, as if sensing someone entering a forbidden area. One by one, creatures formed by the red stones appeared in their line of sight. I expected creatures, but I never thought they would be of this kind. Jiangji tightened his grip on his weapon. They don't seem like creatures. Long Sun frowned. They're more like guardians bestowed with life and strength. In that era, there were such ancient rituals, usually utilized to protect extraordinary. Long Sun suddenly paused, realizing he had said too much, and as he saw everyone's gaze on him, he hurriedly touched his head. I also heard about this in the present world. Jiangji nodded, while Bai Yilan seemed thoughtful. Su Chi gave a thumbs up and praised. Brother Long is truly knowledgeable. Stop pretending, brother. If you can't lie, you don't have to. Having this much knowledge of the land of extreme evil is explainable, but being so familiar with the ancient world and so forth isn't something you can just inquire about. Su Chi actually had an uncertain but reasonable guess. That is, Long Sun is a person awakened from the ancient world, within the dark zone. However, if there are guardians, doesn't that also suggest that there are advantages here? Jiangji's eyes lit up, looking around. And from the momentum here, I feel there's something of extraordinary value. But Long Sun shook his head. Forget it. It's extremely dangerous here. Not as simple as we imagine. I advise you guys not to think about this place and just take the key and leave. At that moment, the red stone creatures, engulfed in flames, charged towards them. Don't be fooled by their number, just over a dozen. But each one was incredibly fast, their bodies emitting astonishing flames and high temperatures. Then you guys hold them off, Su Chi said. I'll go get the key first. He was intrigued by this place. No ancient world was ever simple. Wait, can we even hold them off? Jiangji widened his eyes. The sect hierarch said if you can, you can. Su Chi suddenly leaped forward, soaring toward the or like a bird. The next moment, the other red stone creatures also reacted violently, trying to intercept Su Chi, although some were stopped. But most of them still thunderously charged towards Su Chi, their mouths wide open. Red high-energy magma spurted out. Su Chi swiftly navigated through them, quickly dodging the high-temperature magma attacks and other bursting rocks, which he knocked away with force. He also rapidly closed in on the giant mineral placed above the magma, akin to the core of a volcano's heart. It exhibited astonishing energy fluctuations, similar to the key in the previous world except for the difference in magnitude. But Su Chi kicked away a huge stone thrown by a red stone creature and bizarrely said, "Be careful. Do we need reminders about this when we're already fighting? What I mean is, be careful of other people." Su Chi softly said, "This thing has been tampered with, though not successfully. And, do you remember when we landed? I talked about the traces of a battle? There are other people wanting to contend for it." Long Sun said in a deep voice, "No wonder I felt something was off. I sensed blood not belonging to these creatures. Brother Su, should we back off? Can we get the key?" They seemed to also feel the peeping eyes, their expressions somber. If others had been here but didn't take the key, that indicated this thing was not simple. It's indeed a bit challenging. Su Chi stroked his chin. The entire massive minerals material had an extremely strong hardness. Those who had tested this place had at least 7th rank strength. But it's not a big problem. He activated the power of the Holy Light Angel. The indomitable effect directly enhanced the Dark Star. Pierced right through. The next moment, the extremely hard mineral was effortlessly sliced open. The explosively breaking mineral scattered around, and within it, a peculiar red fragment. It was pulsating, containing even more powerful energy than anticipated. "Is this the key?" Su Chi muttered to himself, wondering why he felt a strange aura. As the minerals were cut open, the peeping eyes around instantly turned a bit shocked and surprised. The next moment, there were optical changes and figures began to appear from the surroundings, bringing with them a powerful aura. "Kill! Take the key!" Jiangxi's eyes widened. Holy shit! There are so many people. A team of nearly a dozen people, with a ferocious killing intent, charged directly. Is it a small group or what? Su Chi, however, ignored the people rushing towards him and reached out to hold the red gemstone. Contemplative. Could it be that there are other extraordinary items here? Because what he saw in this gemstone seemed not to be a mineral or anything else, but just a drop of blood. Other people growled as they charged towards Su Chi. Long Sun tried to stop them but was blocked by other red creatures. Bai Yilin and Jiangxi, however, did not move. The strength of this group was not as high as expected, although their stealth just now had been excellent, and even they hadn't noticed the slightest. Everybody's attacks came crashing down, but when Su Chi raised his hand, the surrounding heat waves suddenly began to swirl. The space Rubik's Cube turned, and the silence of all things also activated. Boom, boom, boom. Lava burst forth, accompanied by astonishing heat and a crushing force. It swept everyone directly up. Their expressions turned doubtful, and they screamed out, "What kind of strength is this? Why can't I use my abilities? Damn it!" Su Chi discovered that the silence of all things, a skill of silent range, was more useful in facing a large ambush than he expected. It could silence irrespective of the number of people, and only those with strong strength could break free from the restriction. And among these people there was only one. He had fierce scars on his face, a cold expression, and held a long spike full of iron nails. "No matter what tricks you have, just die." Terrifying strength burst out instantly, and the surrounding air was covered by spiritual energy. Attacks surged from all directions toward Su Chi. Snap! Su Chi fiercely kicked out, sending a figure flying straight into the rocks, smashing the stones into splinters. Su Chi said to himself, "To be honest, I've got the key. Can't we all just share it happily without resorting to fighting? It reminds me of my former ship captain." Although this group had been lurking here and their numbers weren't small, another team arriving here might very well have been killed and looted of everything valuable. Unfortunately, they had encountered the sect hierarch of the hustlers. A sect hierarch could hardly be called nice. No, could hardly be called ordinary, right? 10 minutes later, they had escaped the pursuit of the red creatures and retreated to a safe place outside the volcano. Long Sun held the strongest bald guardian. Jiangxi puzzledly said, "Why did you bring him along?" Looking at the pattern on the opponent's uniform, Long Sun said gravely, "Because they are not ordinary people. They are from the Star Raider force." Jiangxi blinked. Star Raider. That sounds familiar. Bai Yilan slowly said, I've heard that the Star Raiders are a constant star-level force, utterly malevolent and vile. A so-called constant star level involves a force controlling at least 10 worlds or more, and at the very least possessing a 7th-rank entity. Why, Brother Long, would you know about this Star Raider? Long Sun's expression was grave. He hesitated slightly but ultimately sighed. He looked at Su Qi and the others. I wasn't originally planning to tell you guys, but I truly didn't expect to encounter their force here. Long Sun said solemnly, Now hiding it will only drag you down. I need to tell you something. I am a wanted person on the sequence list, and my ranking is very high. Sequence list. The Universal Bounty List is divided into the Extraordinary List and the Sequence List, with the Sequence List catering to beings below the 5th sequence. After Long Sun finished explaining to the two of them, he looked down at the bald man on the ground. His appearance here, I'm afraid it's related to me. I must confirm certain things. Jiang Ji was somewhat stunned. He didn't understand much about the Universal Bounty List. After all, most of the members of the Meteor Alliance couldn't make it onto the list, plus it required a special object to access and consumed expensive spirit coins, which were a resource too costly for the impoverished geniuses of the Meteor Alliance. They simply couldn't afford it. He couldn't help but ask, how high? As high as 3 or 4-story buildings. Long Sun gestured solemnly with one finger. First place. Long Sun's finger trembled, barely keeping composed, as he widened his eyes and shouted, How is that possible? The entities in the front ranks of the sequence list, they are backgrounds so formidable it's terrifying. Not even the sons of the Spirit King can get on there. How could I possibly qualify? Jiang Ji rolled his eyes. Then why did you gesture number 1, bro? Long Sun cleared his throat. What I mean is, I'm currently around the 100,000 mark. Jiang Ji. He couldn't help but glance at Su Qi and Bai Yilan. Is 100,000 considered high? Su Qi. What a coincidence. I wanted to ask the same question. Bai Yilan spoke gravely beside them. It's very high, considering this list is for the vast entirety of the present world. Even though there are many who stay hidden and aren't exposed in the present world, being in the top 100,000 means there's certainly individuals with very high bounties. Judging by the value, it's probably close to 100 million spirit coins. Jiang Ji's eyes then widened. 100 million? You're that valuable. What have you done? That's hard to say. Long Sun didn't answer, but he could understand the expression on Jiang Ji's face. After all, anyone would be surprised after hearing the amount of their bounty. However, he sensed through the traits in his own bloodline that when he announced the amount, none of the three revealed any negative emotions such as greed or murderous intent. This also relieved Long Sun. This was a test after all. Although Long Sun thought of them as good people from their interactions over the past few days, under the pressure of such a large amount of money and interest, anyone could waver. No, wait. There was one more person whose expression was too calm. Su Qi looked towards Long Sun's gaze. Why are you looking at me? Although I'm tempted by this 100 million, I am a good person. Bai Yilan knew the name Su Buxian held a high spot on the bounty list. Only Long Sun and Jiang Ji, who were not very familiar with the bounty list, had no idea. However, Su Qi was still somewhat surprised. So being in the top 100,000 counted as a pretty badass existence. But that's to be expected. In the past 6 months or so, many ancient divine descendants and ancient tribes have emerged and come into the limelight, with some still concealed, ready to astound the world at any moment. Of course, 1 million spirit coins would already have countless individuals gritting their teeth wanting to seize the bounty, let alone tens or hundreds of millions. Bai Yilan didn't possess the special card needed to check the list. He couldn't help but quietly ask Su Qi, Brother Su, what's your current ranking? Not much, the bounty amount has plummeted, and the ranking has also fallen. Su Qi sighed. That's to be expected. Watching Su Qi sigh, Bai Yilan could relate, for as a genius, he understood a genius's mindset. Bounty amounts represent worth, fame, and also a manifestation of strength. This decline was, in fact, a letdown for them. After all, Brother Su, you haven't shown your face in the present world for over half a year, and a lot has happened during this time. Many prevalent divine sons, heavenly prides, and potential new stars have all emerged. Bai Yilan consoled, "It's normal for you to have dropped now." Su Qi paused. That was indeed true. He had fallen to just over the 100th rank now. Su Qi glanced at his own bounty value, roughly 15 billion. It seems he really hadn't made many appearances over the past 6 months, becoming somewhat out of the limelight. Su Qi did want to check the ranking of the despicable person, but unfortunately he could only access the sequence list. At this very moment, Long Sun was having a somewhat unfriendly exchange with Bald, his expression growing increasingly serious and solemn. "Do you have any findings, Brother Long?" Jiang Ji asked. Long Sun said gravely, "And they aren't here to ambush us on purpose. It's just that they happened to encounter us." Bai Yilan nodded. "That's reasonable. After all, if they were really ambushing us, their strength wouldn't be sufficient. But things have gotten complicated." Long Sun grew more serious. "Their chance encounter signifies that many star raiders are converging on the path we are to take, and will probably come directly upon them soon. And most likely their target is me. So," Long Sun paused, "I suggest we avoid danger. After finding something of high value here, let's use the space key to open the path back home. Each world space key can open the return journey or the path to the next world fragment. Of course, they have cooldown times, some a few days, some even several months, and some special space keys contain rules. This relates to the level of the world." Su Qi waved his hand broadly. "We obviously can't return now. If we encounter them, we'll just blow them up." Jiang Ji's eyes bulged. "That sounds bold. But can't you listen to Brother Long? That's the Star Raider organization. Their power level is constant star level. Is constant star level very impressive? Are they stronger than our Hustlers sect?" Jiang Ji and Bai Yilan fell silent. At times like this, it was best not to say too much to avoid getting caught in the sect hierarch's communication quirks. Long Sun also knew about the Hustlers sect, which seemed to be an organization from the superpower world. He shook his head and explained, "Let me explain the classification of power levels to you. Ordinary, insignificant forces do not have a designation. A power that controls 7 worlds can be called planet level. Constant star level forces are even larger, and this level of force usually has a wide gap, possibly ranging from 7 worlds to hundreds of worlds. Above that are the nebula level and galaxy level forces. You should stop thinking about those, as they are unimaginably massive and terrifying." Jiang Ji and Bai Yilan's eyes widened in shock, murmuring, "Is the present world really such a vast place?" They were also making their first contact with a vast number of powers and gaining their first detailed understanding of truly immense and elite forces. The more they knew, the more they revered. They now understood the vast. Of course, there was one exception. No big issue. Su Qi. Long Sun looked at Jiang Ji and Bai Yilan. "Brother Su likes to fantasize quite a bit. Yes, he gives us dreams and likes to deceive himself. That's a qualified leader. Anyway," Long Sun coughed, "I don't recommend it, but if you don't want to give up, you could take the risk and advance 1 or 2 worlds to see." "No problem," Bai Yilan nodded. "Let's go." They found that the ripples indicated by the space key weren't far, just less than 2 kilometers away. And they weren't without any harvest, having obtained energy barites after slaying the red life forms, along with the various valuable properties and equipment left behind by those people. No wonder they say plundering is the quickest way to make money. After all, every entry into a space was like a jackpot that accumulated unless it was returned each time to be stored by the assurance institutions of the major galaxy-level forces, which inevitably entailed significant risk, not to mention the high cost of repeated travels, which was higher than expected. Boom! The red gem exploded instantly, propping up the ripple portal, which was also very unstable, with even hotter energy rushing towards them. It caused their faces to change slightly as they hastily summoned all their spiritual energy to defend themselves and moved backward. The surrounding space also fluctuated. "What is this?" Long Sun's pupils contracted. He said solemnly. "This indicates that the next world level is very high. Just establishing the portal with the ripples already has the world's power from that place surging through." At this moment, it was unclear whether it was the impact of the exploding red gem or the influence of the ripples. Boom, boom, boom. The volcano group had several volcanoes bursting from time to time. The terrible magma seemed to cover the sky, with vast amounts of volcanic limestone splattering around. The entire ground vibrated violently. Numerous mountain-like bodies exploded like meteorites, scattering stones carrying sparks as they fell from the sky like heavenly girls scattering flowers. Damn! This power has awakened this volcano group, which is still in a period of quiescence. The volcano is going to erupt. Everyone immediately thought of something, and their eyes collectively turned towards the largest volcano. Their expressions filled with unimaginable fear. Is that thing going to erupt too? Seeming hot waves of air wildly fluctuated. They could hardly imagine what the scene might be like next, but it would undoubtedly be catastrophic. No one could survive. The earthquake, the entire sky dome seemed like the end of days. Boom, boom, boom. Massive eruptions triggered a chain reaction of continuous bursts. Run! Without any hesitation, they braced against the terrifying ripples, intending to head inside. Terrifying spiritual energy erupted as if it cost nothing. They were panicked. Truly panicked now. This was also a testament to everyone's power. Bai Yilan and Jiang Ji had at least 100,000 spiritual energy to start with, and their aura was significantly stronger than others of the same rank. And Long Sun was different. In his desperate rush, his burst even bore a hint of blood around him, resembling dragon shadows. It seemed everyone was in a rush. After all, this was truly an apocalyptic power of horrifying magnitude. As he rushed into the ripples, Bai Yilan's eyes trembled suddenly. Looking around, feeling something was missing. Wait, why is one person missing? He turned back abruptly, but he found that Su Qi was standing still and had not rushed with them. "Brother Su." Su Qi leaned against a vast amount of fireball stones crashing down, saying to them, "You guys go to the next site first. I'll catch up." Jiang Ji's eyes widened. "What are you doing, man?" Su Qi slowly looked toward the volcano, which resembled a passage to hell. "I want to see what it will be like when it explodes." Long Sun did not understand, but they could not return, as they were already caught by the ripples and pulled into the channel. "All right, we'll go first, and contact you later using the spiritual ability communicator." With a trailing voice, the three of them disappeared into the ripples. Meanwhile, Su Qi slowly withdrew his gaze, without any hesitation, instantly summoned the yellow robe and angel wings from behind. The magic domain was constructed. His entire horrifying spiritual energy erupted unabashedly from his body. This is a good place. He had mentioned before that he needed an opportunity to break through the 7th rank, and since there were no opponents, using this extreme world and deadly natural disaster was also acceptable. Moreover, there was one more thing. Su Qi also wanted to see what lay hidden beneath this vast volcano group. Boom! 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 Just like a nuclear explosion, massive mushroom clouds intertwined with the fiercely hot magma soared into the sky. Su Qi walked among them. The shadow of the yellow robe behind him intersected with the angel wings of holy light. The magic cube domain around him easily deflected everything. Thud! Thud! He heard a pounding sound like a mighty heart around his ears, and it seemed that the volcanic belt buried deep in the Earth's crust also had a pulse. Su Qi strode toward the largest crater. The sky dome was vast like falling stars, but they were all irrelevant to him. The terrifying energy fluctuations were all blocked by him. Nearly 1,000,000 terrifying spiritual energy exuded from Su Qi, and in a flash, he lavishly used various skills. Here it comes. Su Qi eyed the majestic crater. Rumble! The vast crater had an astonishing temperature. Flames soared into the sky, seeming to devour everything. Meanwhile, Su Chi could feel that the air around him was clearly being sucked away, as a massive gust of wind rushed toward the enormous crater. Some say a volcanic eruption is just the planet sneezing, but now, it was likely about to self-destruct. The next moment, the ground under Su Chi's feet cracked madly. Without any hesitation, he soared into the sky with the support of angel wings. The entire vast crater emitted a deafening noise. While flying, he could clearly see a massive bright light truly erupting from within. Su Chi raised an eyebrow. It seems a bit fierce. Boom! The terrifying eruption had just begun from the vast crater. In that instant, merely the fluctuation of the air had already overturned everything around. His alarm bell rang. Without any hesitation, he prepared to retreat. However, Su Chi slightly raised an eyebrow. Beneath the endless skyfire destroying the heavens, Su Chi suddenly saw a huge exclamation mark, with deep red font on it. If you can touch it, you can obtain an astonishing reward. Su Chi, what does it mean that touching it brings incredible rewards? He looked ahead. A massive group of volcanoes was thunderously erupting, and the largest crater is shot up into the clouds like skyfire descending in reverse. The entire group erupted together like a red laser tens of thousands of meters in diameter. He exclaimed, "How could I possibly touch that? I'd melt if I went in." Without any hesitation, Su Chi unleashed his spiritual energy amid the surrounding dangers, resisting the terrifying temperature and the erupting formidable energy. He then dodged various volcano cannons that shot up like sky-piercing lasers. This can no longer be called a volcanic eruption. It's a cataclysmic self-destruction. Su Chi watched the endless surge of various flames reaching toward the sky dome, no end in sight. He didn't believe that an ordinary world could continue to exist under such an eruption. Moreover, he had underestimated the duration and terror of the energy. Underground skyfire thunderously broke through everything. Massive land plates were hurled into the sky, leaving no stable ground to stand on. Su Chi stepped on the superspeed flying rocks while his eyes locked onto the distant terrifying skyfire. Strange! From the terrifying skyfire, he faintly discerned something being pushed up from underground. Su Chi grabbed a flying fragment of Mars, clenched it hard in his hand. The rock shattered. It revealed a red gem-like object inside. This is the same as the space key of this world. He paused. In other words, Su Chi slowly watched the multitude of Mars shards erupting from the volcano, each carrying sparkling red lights. These are also blood drops. And then, with a loud bang sound, the red blood drop exploded with a powerful energy blast and scorching heat around Su Chi for a 20-meter radius. Su Chi's sleeves swirled, his surrounding spiritual energy easily deflecting it. Like that space key, even a single drop of blood possesses immense power. He fixed his gaze below the skyfire. What terrifying entity lies underneath? Su Chi was certain. There must be a life associated with flames residing beneath. The blood drops erupting with the volcano were evidence enough. But, as for making contact, Su Chi observed the scene of world-shattering eruptions and the terrifying ongoing burst. Su Chi transformed the dark star into a long blade, which sliced through the giant rocks hurtling toward him. His pupils temporarily closed, reflecting the form of evil god Sheephead. Logically speaking, we can only charge into this place that's like a nuclear blast site. This was no longer related to lower sequences. Such terrifying energy, even a 7th rank would dissolve in moments. ZZZT. The Bushin No. 1 machine had already drawn out the electric light blade, adjusting its energy to maximum and unleashing the most powerful strike. Between endless towering pillars of fire, it sliced open a gap. Although it lasted only a moment, Su Chi raised an eyebrow. He seemed to glimpse a silhouette, just an outline, but certain that it was right below and immensely huge. It seems this is the thing I need to touch. Su Chi, with the gathered information, Indeed, it looks like a narrow escape from death. But Su Chi lifted his hand, directly activating the Holy Light Corridor. His entire being entered another space, stepping directly toward the center of the Skyfire. This was the Holy Light Corridor Bug, an absurd trait possessed by the divine race, effortlessly dodging massive terrifying forces. However, Su Chi raised an eyebrow because the corridor was slightly trembling. Why the angel divine race was powerful was due to its inherent suppression of equivalent ranks. Not that it could not be affected or destroyed, just that it required a higher order. The time I can stay in the Holy Light Corridor is shortening under this force's influence. I must bring a swift resolution. Number 1 machine. The Bushin number 1 machine was immediately set into motion, launching its final electric light slash with its last vestiges of power, and plummeting toward the Skyfire. It opened a new, more enduring breach, while Su Chi took advantage of this breach to rush headlong into it. In an instant, indescribably terrifying temperatures, like successive nuclear bombs exploding next to him, coupled with the shock of energy, it nearly ground everything that entered here to dust in an instant. But the Holy Light Corridor isolated everything. Boom, boom, boom. Su Chi plummeted through, feeling only the molten impacts hitting him in the face. He moved within the corridor. Meanwhile, behind him, the corridor cracked inch by inch, swallowed by surging firelight coming in. This apocalyptic world-level energy was not something lower sequences could withstand. According to the level quantification of the Abyss Church, generally speaking, 7th rank is dubbed City Destruction Level, Sequence 6 is Continent Destruction Level. But only Sequence 5 is genuinely World Destruction Level. Here, in other words, only Sequence 5 could enter and walk around, if it weren't for the Holy Light Corridor. Su Chi likely wouldn't have been able to go in at all. But the deeper he got, the more Su Chi's eyes sparkled. He could now see what was inside. It was a humanoid massive body, a body burning intensely. Indescribable, because with this glance, Su Chi saw only part of its body, too gargantuan to see the entire figure. He could only see its mountain-like thighs and every inch of its body burning with the fierce flames of terrible energy, which seemed to be its inherent traits. The ancient being, the Flame Giant. Su Chi sprinted down the corridor, under the endless terror of the sun-like scorching heat, constantly trying to comprehend the full stature of this body. After all, the red exclamation mark had mentioned the need to make contact with something, and he would inevitably have to leave this corridor to do so. Even if it only took a second, it would be a fatally brief moment. So, Su Chi could not afford any mistake or misjudgment. He had to precisely determine what exactly he needed to touch. As Su Chi moved swiftly, he gradually observed the giant body's torso, arms, and chest. At the same time, he also spotted something embedded in the chest. A giant blade full of cracked fissures. Is this a corpse? No, it wasn't right. Su Chi could distinctly sense. The body had sealed within it a terrifying might, vitality had not dissipated. It was only suppressed by a tremendous terror due to the giant blade. In other words, this body was still alive. Su Chi had a little over 20 seconds left in the corridor. He must make a judgment and use his time wisely. At the same time, Su Chi successfully caught sight of the giant body's head. It bore immense black horns. The face was not human in appearance, more akin to a monster, its face marked by patterns that gathered like molten lava, eyes tightly shut. On its forehead was a rune emitting an astonishing red glow. Coincidentally, this rune was also on the giant blade, but it emanated a deep blue color. Su Chi roughly knew what he needed to touch. But if there were two of them, could it be like a bomb, where touching the wrong one would open Pandora's treasure box? Su Chi squinted slightly, and after a few seconds he made a choice. He went straight for the blue giant blade. Of course, it wasn't him who made the choice but the question mark. And at that moment, Su Chi's heart suddenly leaped as if he was being watched by a terrifying gaze. He shifted his gaze. When exactly? The flame giant had opened its tightly shut eyes. eyes that blazed with a startling, searing brilliance. Yet, from them, Su Qi felt a naked chill and an overwhelming intimidation. Anyone else might have already had their pupils contract sharply, their body hair stand on end, and their body shudder violently. But Brother Su, who had not seen big troubles, had played ball with the evil god, had a card game with the master of destruction, and even coaxed the god of anxiety back to sleep. Su Qi curled his lips. Don't glare at me, though you look like the one who was chopped. I think the owner of the giant blade was in self-defense. And also, although Su Qi was in the corridor, he could still feel a massive force coming to annihilate him. This body could still muster the residual heat around to kill him. Clearly, it was no good thing. He decisively approached the giant blade, and the surroundings of the flame giant resounded with a roaring uproar. We're leaving. Su Qi had to leave enough time to enter the corridor and escape from this place. The next moment, Su Qi raised his hand, opening all the divine artifacts. A terrifying force tightly enveloped him, spiritual energy bursting forth in full, employing every method at his disposal to defend against the surrounding nuclear-like terrifying impact. This deadly power was extraordinary. Directly aiming at the rapidly fleeing Su Qi, the annihilation came quickly, clearly not wanting Su Qi to touch it. Come on! Su Qi did not retreat or shirk. All his strength burst forth in the face of the crisis of death. He was exerting all the power he could muster at the moment. But in the core of the place, under the terrifying focus of the flame giant's might, it could only be sustained for the briefest moment. And this moment was already enough. At that instant, Su Qi's hand successfully pressed on the rune on the giant blade. At that instant, the giant blade, as if activated, surrounded Su Qi with a great amount of blue light, soaring into the sky like the skyfire. Although they were in opposition, visually they merged together. Holy shit! Blue ghost fire! Boom, boom, boom! The flame giant seemed somewhat enraged and insane. Its eyes opening seemed already at its limit, but the terrifying energy within its body burst forth again vigorously. Su Qi immediately ran into the sanctuary of the corridor, uninjured. However, Su Qi saw everything solid within sight here was dissolving, vanishing into annihilation. Damn, if not run now, then when? He had no time to consider how the blue energy and the flame giant were fighting each other. Nor did he have the time to see what he had obtained. The corridor's time was like that of an expiring VIP member. One could only see so far and not the grand finale. Su Qi didn't hesitate and immediately took off running. He also failed to notice a large number of runes had vanished from the giant X, and a diamond-shaped blue insignia had formed between his palms. If one looked closely, they could see countless rune patterns within it. Ripples were still vigorously remaining in place. Su Qi approached the ripples at the fastest speed within the corridor. At the same time, his gaze was on the terrifying convergence of power, the ancient aura, the roaring and howling that spanned eons. What in the world is this ancient creature? Su Qi felt ever more the specificity of this dark zone, a complete convergence of an ancient era. There were extraordinary, even beyond extraordinary, terrifying existences, while it seemed they were all sealed or in slumber. But the little power that leaked out was enough to destroy heaven and earth. And at the same time, Su Qi had also understood the so-called prologue of the extremely evil world. It wasn't the unfolding of events, but the awakenings of an ancient era's prologue. It seemed the blue energy held dominance, forcibly suppressing the flame giant, while the flame giant let out an ear-splitting roar, filled with various reluctance, rage, and murderous intent. And this murderous intent seemed to have locked onto him. Not me, dude. Su Qi distinctly felt that piercing gaze sticking on him, and many flame shadows appeared all around him. It wasn't me who singled you out, I just played a small part. Open sesame. Until now. Su Qi actually understood what he had done. A long slumber, and after the flame giant was sealed by the giant blade's strength. It awoke first, its power swelled, seeking to break free from its chains. While Su Qi was the one who awakened the slumbering strength inside the giant blade. The corridor time was up. Su Qi's body instantly withdrew from that period, but since he was no longer in that terrifying energy zone, he didn't need to worry about instant annihilation. Only, boom, boom, boom. The endless fire rushed towards Su Qi, even if suppressed by the blue power, intending to surround and attack him. Su Qi moved swiftly, explosive blasts occurring incessantly wherever he was. But he blocked them all. Don't be like that. I know you don't want to let go, but I have to catch the next venue, so I'm not sticking around for lunch. Su Qi directly charged into the ripples at high speed, not even glancing back. In the apocalyptic cataclysm, only endless roars and howls remained, and just at that moment, a projection slowly materialized, seated on the edge of the giant blade. Stop yelling, stop it. As a demigod, bellowing like a wild beast, the figure spoke softly. Moreover, waking up early, taking advantage of my slumber, trying a sneak attack, but it laughed out loud. I didn't expect it to be messed up by a mortal. It gazed off toward the ripples. Although I don't know how that kid did it, but well done. Did a good thing otherwise letting you out. This tug-of-war between the present world and the abyss would have had a hiccup right here. Upon hearing this, the flame giant seemed even more outraged and aggrieved. It shook its head with a sigh. Too bad. He ran off too quickly. Otherwise I could have rewarded him with some treasures worth millions of spirit coins. The flame giant seemed to sneer, making a sound. Ha! It widened its eyes. You're accusing me of being stingy, even though I'm a demigod, and calling me a miser? That 7th-rank kid. Treasures worth millions are clearly enough. And I'm worried he'd become the target of others' envy. You understand nothing. It couldn't be bothered to bicker with this bastard anymore. After all, they were opposing sides, and once it stabilized itself for now, it went straight back inside the giant blade. This drawn-out tug-of-war plan has spanned such a long time. It's the first encounter in later generations. Only the outcome is yet unknown. I'm ready, though, it murmured softly. Before I slipped into slumber, I didn't get to control that special object. After countless years of eroding, it should finally soften up and become my aid now. Its power swept through the space inside the giant blade, body freezing. 2 seconds later, it suddenly screamed in terror, startling even the flame giant. Wait! Where the hell is my big treasure? The voice spread throughout the entire world. Su Qi couldn't help but look back in the pitch-black ripple passage. Although he couldn't see anything, however, I thought I just heard an extremely horrific scream. Was the endurance of that flame giant that bad? But it might also be an illusion. At this moment, the pulling force of the ripples gradually made Su Qi descend towards a new world. Due to the space key that had been used to open the ripples earlier, there was a terrifying energy fluctuation, and it seemed the level of the next world was very high. According to Long Sun's account, the space of the dark zone had the traits of being advanced and discontinuous, that is to say, the next world was always progressing toward the core. But you would never know which space fragment the next space would lead to or how far it was from the core of the dark zone. And this time, Su Qi could also see the light within the ripple passage, indicating that the level of this world was indeed high and the space was stable, not like other worlds filled with currents of nihility. Su Qi heard strange, noisy sounds by his ear as he just stepped out of the ripple passage. He instantly felt a powerful suppression. Please note, player skills, equipment, and item bar have been sealed by a powerful force. Su Qi wasn't in a hurry. It wasn't the first time he had encountered such a situation. The sealing back and forth made him feel like he was cheating. And what caught his sight was a silver-white prison, filled with peculiar forces and high-precision surveillance screens, with the constant ticking of mechanical sounds. Surrounding him were numerous infrared lasers, densely locked onto Su Qi. Folks, who knows? Just stepping outside and I'm already targeted by a bunch of infrared lines. Then a strong light burst forth from the prison cell's holographic instruments, A red holographic shadow flickered on the screen, emitting dangerous and warning discovery with an indifferent mechanical voice. Outsider, please do not act rashly. Otherwise, you will be shot dead. Dangerous and lethal energy lay dormant in hidden weapons, seemingly ready to burst at any moment. Su Qi also did not act rashly. The cold tone of the other side was clearly not a joke. Meanwhile, his gaze was observing everything around him. Everywhere seemed filled with fatal threats, and his arrival wasn't surprising at all. All of the precautionary measures seemed to have been rehearsed countless times, very proficient. Lasers were engraving a nameplate. Su Qi noticed the numbers on it, 999999. From now on, this series of numbers is your prison identity, the cold mechanical voice conveyed. You can only leave this place after you complete all your obligatory work here. Su Qi made no movements as the nameplate was directly engraved into his arm like a tattoo. He looked at the numbers. Quite the fancy number. After the nameplate was confirmed, the numerous lasers slowly retracted, and a beep sounded from within the cell. It is now time for obligatory labor. Proceed to the elevator immediately. The cold voice came through and the cell door opened. All right, thanks for the guidance. Su Qi stepped out from the room, although skills, equipment, and item bar were all sealed. Including his spiritual energy was suppressed, but it wasn't a big problem. Moreover, this world gave him a very familiar feeling. He entered the corridor. There were other rooms in the corridor, and Su Qi raised an eyebrow. Some rooms still had fluctuations of space ripples. Could it be? The next moment, many cells opened, and figures with slightly pale faces and a bit of dismay emerged, evidently having just been engraved with nameplates as outsiders. Indeed, Su Qi looked at the surrounding cells. The level of this world is very high, and the space ripples are all under the control of the people of this world, so all outsiders who enter here. Then his gaze shifted to the nameplate. Will become prisoners here and will also be engraved with such an identity nameplate. At this moment, a deep red light of danger emerged in the corridor. No lingering in the corridor is allowed. Including Su Qi, all 6 individuals immediately felt a surge of intense electrical current, accompanied by sharp pain, spreading instantly from the arm nameplate. The other 5 screamed in agony, attempting to use their spiritual energy to resist, but were suppressed. Su Qi's eyes narrowed. He looked at his palm, as just a moment ago, he could have instantly used his spiritual energy to break through this thing. But all the electric current was drawn to his palm, as if being absorbed and devoured. When did I get a diamond-shaped mark on my palm? Su Qi squinted his eyes. It wasn't there before. Could it be the reward for completing the red exclamation mark? He didn't explore further. Together with the other 5, he entered the transport elevator. The 5 of them were very cautious, with one whispering, "Are you all from other space fragments?" "Yes, but I didn't expect this world to seal everything. I can hardly use my spiritual energy. What the hell kind of place is this?" The 5 whispered amongst themselves. "Actually, you don't have to be so quiet." Su Qi glanced at the nameplate on his arm. This thing seems to be the product of some extraordinary technology, capable of monitoring our every word and deed anytime, anywhere, and also controlling our lives within it. The others looked solemnly at their own nameplates. Indeed, the pain just now was heart-piercing, even able to affect the spiritual energy in their bodies, as if it could easily ignite and destroy them. "So, what do we do?" Someone clenched their fist. "Had I known, I would have resisted just now." "You couldn't have." A flat-headed man beside him sighed softly. "Although they can limit spiritual energy and all sorts of items, the special ability traits of the sequence are not affected." He pressed his finger to his forehead. "My special ability is spiritual investigation. The moment I set foot in here, I realized that there were lethal weapons everywhere, and there are also extremely unusual energies that I can't make sense of, like..." The crew-cut man hesitated for a moment, with a look of incomprehension. "The monitor in the room, it should be a machine, but I can sense the presence of life in it." Everyone frowned. "Machine? Life? Could you be mistaken?" The crew-cut man shook his head. I don't know, but there's definitely something strange about this place. Everyone, please be extra careful. Now that everyone was in the same situation, there was no competition, only a chance for unity. Su Qi looked at the elevator approaching. It was gradually getting closer. The information that the crew-cut man had probed was similar to what he saw, though he knew a bit more. A place where machines could have life, wielding special energy, and a completely different path of sequence manifested. That could only possibly originate from one place. Divine Machinery Kingdom. But the problem was, according to what Su Qi knew, the Divine Machinery Kingdom had been destroyed by an existence named the Terminator. And the ultimate core of the Divine Machinery Kingdom was also in his own hands. So, Su Qi speculated about this world. After all, this was the Dark Zone, filled with a great number of dormant world fragments. And it seemed that this place was also part of the world belonging to the Divine Machinery Kingdom. Did it just happen to survive because it fell into a slumber? That was Su Qi's rough guess. At the same time, he was also observing everything here because the existence of this world didn't seem very friendly from the current situation. Let's just wait and see. After all, we don't have much information at hand. The movement of the elevator was not ascending but seemed to move in all directions, making it difficult to discern the direction. About a minute later, there came a mechanical click from the elevator, and the doors opened directly. Only then did they see the scene outside. Their eyes trembled slightly. The whole area was covered by a massive electromagnetic storm in midair, blocked by a huge energy shield, obstructing paths all around. A multitude of robots and mechanical life stood outside the protection zone, their bodies adorned with various precision parts, emitting a metallic cold gleam, mechanical red eyes coldly observing everything below. And below, there were numerous creatures of flesh and blood, using human labor with various tools, digging and transporting some kind of shiny material from this magnetic storm zone. On the holographic display of the protection zone, a few large words were written. Number 24 Energy Mining Area. So it turned out to be a damn black mine. The so-called forced labor is to mine here. The five exchanged glances. Su Qi, however, quickly came to terms with it. In just one glance, he saw that everyone here was an outsider, contrasting with the mechanical life outside the protective shield. And the surrounding people were not surprised at their arrival. Some looked on numbly, others with schadenfreude. Those 6 fools are still standing there gawking. Little do they know, in this place, a moment's inattention can spell danger. At this very moment, a message suddenly appeared in the form of a hologram. 999,999. Your obligatory labor has been issued. Report to your worksite within 1 minute or face a second-level punishment. Su Qi looked at the item that popped out from his badge while the other 5 also received the same message. They were all appointed to the same mining work area. You're not running yet. A middle-aged man with a pushcart was transporting goods, wiped the filth from his body. Don't underestimate punishment. Even though it's not far, once you violate the rules they've set, there's no compromise, just icy cruelty. The 5 were startled and immediately remembered the agonizing pain from before. Feeling a sink in their hearts, they quickly started running. Even though spiritual energy was suppressed, they could still use about 1% of it. That few hundred points of spiritual energy didn't do much in resisting the mechanical army, but for mining and other obligatory labor, it was enough. As for Su Qi, he was constantly absorbing spirit coins, and now his spiritual energy was almost 1 million, so even just 1% meant he had almost 10,000 spiritual energy. However, none of that was the most important part. This amount of spiritual energy, though substantial, was far from enough to charge through this world unobstructed. The equivalent rank of this world was very high, and judging from the surrounding mechanical lives, there must also be ancient and powerful existences. After all, this was the Dark Zone, a place where countless ancient world fragments congregated. Anything could happen. Luckily, within a minute, everyone reached their designated work area according to the coordinates provided. Old miners were silently working there already, and without much hesitation, the five picked up their tools and dispersed to their spots to start working. It wasn't that they were too obedient, but rather, they didn't understand the situation here and could only learn as they went along. Take your tool, kid, and stop daydreaming. An old man beside him, with a pipe in his mouth, tossed a shovel to Su Chi. Daydreaming can cost you your life. Su Chi took the shovel. Is it that strict? Even cattle can only work to the death at 996. The old man deeply inhaled his pipe, looking at those mechanical lives in the distance. For machinery, they are deemed perfect with no tolerance for error, cold and heartless. And you, coming here for the first time, will indeed be very uncomfortable and confused. But even so, you've got to work hard if you want to stay alive. And his eyes seemed devoid of any hope, muddy and numb. Don't even think about resisting. Many have tried to rebel and lost their lives. This place is no simple matter. Su Chi looked at the old man, arching an eyebrow lightly. How long have you been here? 80 years. Just as he thought. Even though the old man was an outsider to this world like them, he was not from their era. At least since the ancient times, the old man had already been working here illegally, waking up only recently with this world. Su Chi extended the shovel and started digging, all the while chatting with the old man. The old man munched on his pipe, knowing Su Chi wanted information, but he did not refuse. Su Chi quickly understood. The number 24 energy mining area they were working in was crucial for all mechanical lives in this world. But because of the terrible electromagnetic storms, it would greatly affect them, so from ancient times they employed life to mine. Employed. Su Chi noticed the word. Yes, back then. These mechanical lives were fair and friendly, and we, the life forms, got along quite well with them, but later. The old man chewed on his pipe, not elaborating further, seemingly omitting part of the information. It turned into what it is now. Su Chi was about to continue asking. Kid? The old man calmly took a draw from his pipe. Stop asking. You're not the first newbie to ask me these things. If you want to know about the past of the ancient times, better focus on surviving first. The mining isn't so simple. If you can't complete the tasks, it can get very miserable. The old man carried an axe over his shoulder, his muscles like sturdy tree trunks, and with a fierce swing, he struck the metal or cracking it. When Su Chi looked at the five, they were continually striking for almost 5 minutes and had only managed a small crack. So many newcomers from the outside world have chatted with me, but not a single one has survived, the old man said as he brought down his axe again, enlarging the crack. At first, these outsiders entered, each appearing as a heaven's chosen son, said to be the rising generation of the present world. He once thought there might be hope to pin on them, but now it seemed it was all just idle talk. If you can't survive, what good is there in knowing, anyway? Su Chi wasn't surprised that the old man knew about the land of extreme evil and matters of the afterlife. After all, this place had existed for at least half a year now. A large number of creatures from the present world who entered the dark zone never returned, nearly 80% of them. Perhaps they perished there, or perhaps, just like now, were imprisoned in this place to labor in darkness. So, kid, you'd better start mining. All you newcomers have to dig at least 5 energy stones, and at your rate it will take at least 4 hours for each one, the old man said calmly. And this environment is not suitable for an extended stay. It will cause problems. He looked at the terrifying electromagnetic storm in the sky dome. The air was also filled with tiny, drifting black particles. All right, but the energy stones. Su Chi fumbled with a shiny blue crystal in his hand and said with interest, Is this it? The old man nodded. Yes. Wait, that's not right. The old man suddenly widened his eyes as he looked at the energy stone, and after confirming he hadn't seen wrong, exclaimed, Kid, how do you have this? Su Chi paused. I just picked it up from here. The old man's eyes bulged. There's no such good luck, and even if you pick it up, I've been here half a day, why didn't I find one? Su Chi, it's very normal for someone of your age to have blurry vision. However, he paused slightly, realizing that this thing was the energy stone. He was only finding out now, because this stone was not picked up here. It was a byproduct of when the Heart of Divine Weapon was used by Xiao Meng to harness energy. Just like when you burn coal, there are always coal residues. I always thought it was just waste. Not only is the starship's warehouse filled with it, which also poses an explosion risk, but I never imagined. It turns out to be an important energy stone needed by mechanical life in this world. After all, that mechanical core was equivalent to unlimited energy, so Su Chi didn't value these coal residues very highly. Anyway, let's complete the task for one stone first. Su Chi prepared to toss it directly into the energy storage box labeled with his code. This device was also a transport tool and could protect the energy stone. But at this moment, the old man suddenly looked somewhat dazed, staring intently at the energy stone in Su Chi's hand. Wait! He suddenly couldn't help but widen his eyes and speak. Su Chi paused. Eyes as big as copper bells? The old man took a deep breath. Let me take a closer look. Su Chi raised an eyebrow slightly, spreading his hand to reveal the blue energy stone in his palm. The old man murmured, This purity, this magnitude of energy, is a rare existence among many energy stones. I haven't seen many of these even in this mine. Is that so? Su Chi. Then I must be pretty lucky. The old man suddenly reached out and grabbed Su Chi's arm. Kid, do me a favor. Don't hand over this energy stone. Su Chi paused, a look of interest appearing in his eyes. Why? Because someone needs it. The old man pursed his lips and said solemnly, I will give you all the energy stones I dig up, to allow you to meet a higher quota and get more benefits. Su Chi watched the old man's serious expression but didn't hurry to respond. I remember the rules laid out by the mechanical life mentioned very severe punishments for those hoarding energy stones. And there's surveillance everywhere. The old man shook his head. Don't worry. This is the magnetic storm zone. All machinery will malfunction. The surveillance is weak. Moreover, he looked at the entire mine with a firm voice. I will not let you risk it for nothing. I will provide you with sanctuary and resources, and also, the old man whispered, the only chance to escape from here. It seemed this statement was somewhat earth-shattering or extremely taboo. No longer did he seem like the mining old man, but instead like a warrior. Su Chi's gaze paused. Escape, the old man said gravely. This place is a huge prison, and it's completely controlled by those mechanical life. Anyone who enters here is enslaved for eternity, never able to leave. Indeed, this place contained not only a large number of ancient creatures but also many present-world adventurers who came here after the recovery. Some had been here for more than half a year, their expressions numbed with despair. Su Chi's expression had a faint smile. Have things gotten to this stage? Well then, elderly sir, I shall join you on this venture. The work lasted a total of 14 hours, and it was time for everyone to submit their energy stones. The time was set, and those who didn't meet the quota of stones faced third-level punishment. After all, this world isn't afraid of death, as the heat from the extremely evil world continued to bring waves of forced laborers. Beep! Su Chi handed over the 5 energy stones he had mined. These were the stones he had genuinely mined. After all, even the unwanted coal residues and waste produced by the Heart of Divine Weapon were extremely precious and rare here. At the same time, Su Chi had a deeper conversation with the old man, enhancing their understanding. This imprisoning prison was vast, with hundreds of energy mining areas to dig, and the number of people in each area varied but all were above 100. In total, at least 100,000 people were detained here, and Bai Yilan, Jiangji, and Long Sun must have been among them. They just didn't know where exactly. However, Su Chi was not in a hurry to find them. The 3 strength and abilities were top-notch, posing no significant danger in the mining area. Su, let's go, we can move freely now. At this moment, they took the transport elevator back from the mining area to the prison, but instead of the corridor leading directly to their rooms, they arrived in a vast white mechanical city. Just above the city hovered holographically generated weather. Su Chi glanced over the crowd that continuously shuffled down various streets, exhausted. A city prison built specifically for them, yet they can move freely and have access to various shops. Su had noticed the dining, resting, entertainment, and leisure commercial streets. I thought, according to the understanding of mechanical life, they would directly lock everyone in cells, provide food to sustain life functions and the minimum rest time, and then relentlessly continue mining in a repetitive cycle. The elderly man said nothing. You're more vicious than the mechanical life. He shook his head. After all, the mechanical life know that we are beings of flesh and blood, and a mental collapse would certainly prompt fierce rebellion. Of course, they are not afraid of rebellion. They are afraid that if too many people die, there won't be anyone to mine for them. Su Chi remained non-committal. He kept walking alongside the old man. Su Chi was also constantly observing his surroundings. Honestly, there were indeed many people from ancient times, but there were obviously more present-world adventurers. After finishing their obligatory labor, they cursed and complained, helplessly hating the world, though to no avail. We've been here a week now, nothing but mining. Do we even have a chance to escape? Don't even think about it. There's no escaping from here. There were even some of the 7th rank present, but their expressions were grave. Countless people have tried, but without exception, all died. Honestly, some had resigned themselves. Rather than thinking about escaping, if we work hard at mining, we might be able to live more comfortably, get better treatment, and maybe even get promoted to the prison's management. They're exhausted. Numb words resounded clearly, yet they fell flat like dead water. Su, stop looking and remember to stick close to me. Keep out of their sight, act natural, and don't draw attention from people around. Do we have to beware of our own people too? The old man took in the scene and sighed. These are people who have already lost their will, spirits dead. Some, for better benefits, have become the vicious dogs of mechanical life, unworthy of trust. Under absolute power and domination, naturally, there are many who would betray. Such is the selfishness and division innate in human nature. Let's go. Dodge the crowd, into the alley, the old man whispered. Su Chi followed the old man. This city prison was quite liberating, considering how vast it was. It felt almost like a normal world where all human needs, from eating and drinking to entertainment, were fulfilled. There were still nameplates restricting everyone and various surveillance devices on streets and buildings, allowing people to roam freely. The number of people around them dwindled, and the path they took started veering towards gloomy corners. Su Chi asked, "Speaking of which, aren't you worried about being tracked by the nameplate?" "No need to fear." The old man shook his head and reached up to his ear where he revealed an extremely intricate mechanical chip. "I've already blocked them." Su Chi raised an eyebrow. "Prosthetic?" "No, something on a higher level that you cannot imagine. Life technology." The old man spoke softly. However, Su Chi had already seen through it all. These were just ordinary products of the divine machinery kingdom. After all, the most important heart of divine weaponry, from the entire divine machinery kingdom, was still serving as a power source on his starship. Moreover, the divine machinery kingdom had already been destroyed. This world doesn't seem to know it exists, and this place might very well be the only remaining part of the divine machinery kingdom. A world fragment. "Help me with something?" The old man walked to an extremely dilapidated concrete space next to a sewer. "Geez, you gonna steal the manhole cover?" The old man's veins popped. "Help me move the manhole cover." This kid was nothing like people from future generations. Not only lacking a sense of urgency, he was curious about everything and even had the mind to joke. Su Chi. "All right." He moved the manhole cover aside. Then the old man stood by, extended his left hand whose fingers transformed, amalgamating a large number of high-tech active molecules that touched the ground, emitting high-frequency signal waves. Su Chi watched this scene. He could only say that he had seen it before. The body of the former captain of the starship had been converted into a mechanical form. The next moment, from the sewer outlet, a slightly worn blue and white mechanical dog slowly emerged. "Don't panic, it's one of us." The old man reminded Su Chi, worried that the young man would be scared seeing the mechanical life. I'm not panicking. Old man. He silently watched as Su Chi reached out to pat the head of the mechanical dog. Not bad. I'd like to have one. The mechanical dog's eyes whirled as it stared at the old man. A mechanical voice with a jarred tone came out. Old Wong. Is this the newbie you brought this time? Old Wong, pressing his forehead, responded, Yes. It was picked up by Su Chi, who posed it calmly and said, Seems like a guy with no sense of boundaries. Su Chi, however, said interestedly, Can't help it. This is my first time encountering a mechanical life. Quite fascinating. Indeed, this was a new kind of sequence manifestation. The energy and spiritual energy inside were similar, yet fundamentally different. Life was another form altogether. If it was mechanical life, it seemed it could solve the life collapse issue of little Ah Ling. After all, Tentacle Man's daughter, Ah Ling's life, was fading away like quicksand due to a curse. Let's go, newcomer. It transformed its body into another shape and left Su Chi's hands. There are surveillance machines patrolling nearby. We can't stay here long. Having said that, a rusty pipe appeared in the dark entrance of the sewer, and it jumped down first. Old Wong also nodded at Su Chi. Let's go, kid. You'll understand once we get down there. He followed suit. Okay. Su Chi also followed. There appeared to be gravity shifts inside, and he felt as if he was moving quickly through some sort of high speed. The deeper they went, the more they could see the structure below, intricately built yet with a damaged complex framework. It clearly looks like a prison, yet it's just like a normal living city, and there's such a vast space below, Su Chi muttered to himself. But the mechanical dog calmly said, Because this place was originally built for the humans we hired. Only. The mechanical dog looked upwards, its tone unchanged, yet its emotions seemed somewhat heavy. The rebellious forces are ruthless and unscrupulous. Now this place has become a prison enslaved by them. Black Spark. Su Chi pondered. So, you were originally the leaders of this world, and quite friendly with the creatures of the present world, but were defeated by this Black Spark mechanical army. Now, you're hiding below with some humans, barely surviving. Old Wong. Kid, your words are somewhat hurtful. But it seems this is the truth, and even more cruel. Su Chi, stroking his chin, analyzed. Because from what I see now, the most important thing for mechanical life is energy, and they're controlling almost all the energy mining areas. From the current standpoint, it seems like a crushing disparity. The mechanical dog instead turned its head, showing some emotion. Humans, you can't judge our strength. Is that so? Su Chi smiled. When he had just picked up the mechanical dog, he had already captured quite a bit of information. It had high strength, but some parts were worn, and it was also in a super energy-saving mode. Here, they were likely in a severe energy crisis. In this place where energy is everything, they were completely overwhelmed. No wonder Old Wong was so thrilled when he took out that extremely pure energy stone and hurriedly brought him over. At this moment, in the vast city prison, Long Soon and others were in another corner. Several people were sitting in a restaurant, having dug in the mines all day. The three of them were also covered in dust. Sitting across from them was a young man, his demeanor extraordinary, calmly looking at the three of them. Gentlemen, the young man slowly began. What can I say? You've been here for 2 days now. Have you come to understand the current situation in these few days? They had crossed the ripples a day earlier than Su Buxian and had been mining in this place for 2 days. Bai Yilan sighed softly. One can only say. He glanced at a distant monitor and whispered, As Your Excellency mentioned, the situation is much more severe than imagined. Jiang Ji and Long Soon also nodded gently. In these 2 days, they had learned just how powerful those referred to as the Black Spark mechanical life were, representing absolute dominion, an advanced entity that could not be defied. Yes, correct, advanced. The energy burst from their life forms far surpassed that of a spiritual energy user of the same level. Simply put, the so-called rising stars were just the most ordinary among their rank. There are too many people imprisoned here, Even some from ancient times are still being enslaved to this day. With the strength of one person, it is absolutely impossible to escape from this place, Long Sun said, his face showing a hint of concealed anxiety. He had to be anxious, after all, he was also carrying a certain heavy mission. That's how it is, it seems you all understand now. The young man spoke again. Then let me share another piece of data. About 100,000 life of the present world have entered here in the last 6 months. Among them at least 70% have died here, the other 30% are still being enslaved, including you and me. The three of them became more solemn. These were not small numbers. And they further affirmed that this place was indeed a cruel prison. Those 70% who died, that is, 70,000 people, some of them have gathered to resist, others have secretly organized escape attempts. Many of 7th rank were involved. But all without exception were easily annihilated. The young man looked into the distance and quietly said, because the true ruler of the Black Spark Mechanical Army is a terrifying existence of Sequence 6. As soon as the words Sequence 6 were mentioned, the expressions of the three men drastically changed. Although 7th rank and Sequence 6 were only one level apart, the gap between them was insurmountable. No wonder. This place is an inescapable prison, a land of cruel enslavement. But, Bai Yilan suddenly frowned. You sought us out and invited us to join, which means you and your backers must have found a way to escape. Indeed, the three of them were inherently different from the many adventurers of the present world around them, whether in terms of strength, disposition, or potential. They could quickly read the situation and gather information. So, they were noticed by the young man less than half a day later, who then extended an invitation to them. There is a way. The young man calmly looked at them. But you are not yet privy to it. Zhang Ji paused. Your Excellency invites us, yet speaks in riddles. The young man did not immediately answer. Instead, his gaze went to the large crowd in the distance. Here, people are confused. Some have already been smoothed of their edges, while others, weak in power, can not only not contribute but will become a hindrance. Although I have extended an invitation to you, you also need to prove your strength to me. Zhang Ji was taken aback, just about to say something. Long Sun stopped him, looking at the young man. How can we prove it? He was very concerned about leaving and wanted to see if the other party really had a method of escape. This world revolves around energy. Energy stones are firmly controlled by the Black Spark, making them difficult for us to acquire. But, instead, we can collect them using batteries in this city. The young man threw each of them a palm-sized battery device. Once you fill them, that counts as proving your strength and officially becoming one of us. Bai Yilan took it, frowning, and asked, isn't collecting energy in this surveillance-ridden city akin to suicide? Plus, we still have identification plates. The young man shook his head. Don't worry. These were traded from another mechanical force. They can shield information, even if you're spotted by patrol robots. As long as you escape promptly or destroy them, there won't be any problems. Also, a reminder, although these patrol robots are also of 7th rank energy level, do not underestimate their combat capabilities. I understand. Bai Yilan caressed the battery, which indeed possessed various highly sophisticated chips, albeit made crudely. I have one last question. Speak. You just mentioned another mechanical force, apparently not a cruel upper entity, and there are signs of trades with you. What are they? The young man calmly said, they are like these humans, mechanical life rebels imprisoned here. Zhang Ji's eyes brightened. So, we are not fighting alone? At least there were locals to collaborate with, to jointly resist. No, I advise you not to hold hopes on them. The young man gently said, energy is everything. Without it, they are merely lingering on the verge of collapse. The young man said no more but handed over a card. After completion, you can reach this place. Look for this symbol. After speaking, the young man finished the last of the tea gathering and left directly on foot, leaving only Long Sun and 2 others behind. What do you think? Zhang Ji couldn't help but ask. There's nothing wrong with what he said. Bai Yilan saw things clearly. For now, we can only do as he suggested. They seemed to be gathering all the elites. After all, those heavenly prides who entered this place will definitely not be content to be enslaved and waste their time here. He accepted it quite quickly. He could see that the young man had an extraordinary demeanor and strength, as though he came from a major family or power. It seems that the people in this organization and the leaders backing them are not simple either. Full of youthful vigor, why would they stay here long? They must be preparing to seize any opportunity to escape from here. Bai Yilan clenched his fist. This was also his thought. Wait! Long Sun extended his hand, picked up the card, and his pupils slightly narrowed. I think I've seen this pattern before. What is it? A major power? Jiang Ji couldn't help but ask, as he had collected a lot of totems of powers above the constant star level from the land of extreme evil, but couldn't recognize the origin of this pattern. Although slightly altered, this is a god's totem. Long Sun's lips moved slightly as he spoke out these words. In other words, the leader on their side could likely be related to a god, someone with a super background. Oh! Below the city was the underground gathering place of these beings. The rusty metal door creaked as it opened. Upon opening it, Su Qi smelled the strong scents of various gasolines and metal rust. At a glance, he saw massive piles of mechanical parts stacked like mountains, resembling ruins and crudely assembled living quarters. Click, click, click. A mechanical life form was moving parts. It was humanoid in shape, wearing worn and dull mecha, stumbling as it walked. Shandian, also known as the name of the mechanical dog, looked at Su Qi. Human, since old Wang brought you here, it shows you also have a rebellious heart. Welcome to this place, our base camp. Is there anything you want to say? Su Qi paused, pondering for 2 seconds before speaking. You know, humans and mechanical life have many differences, like the term emotional quotient is entirely different. People with high emotional quotient generally say, I really like the wasteland style of your base camp. Shandian tilted its head. And with low emotional quotient? Is this a junkyard? Learned. Shandian nodded seriously. We've always been studying the differences between other life forms and our race. This is a good example. If you want to know, I can tell you more. Thank you. The elder fell into a long silence nearby. He looked at the man and the mechanical dog, feeling complicated. Firstly, neither of those responses was high in emotional quotient. And yet, the two exchanged views. Secondly, could the other actually represent ordinary humans? He had strong doubts. Click, click, click. And just then, in front of them, the mechanical life form transporting tool suddenly burst out a part or two. Its whole body seemed to shake, and the items in its hands crashed to the ground. Boom! Thunderbolt fire. Shandian immediately ran over quickly. Su Qi raised his eyebrows. What a weird name. Old Wang, Shandian called out. Coming. It seemed old Wang was not seeing such a scene for the first time, as he expertly pulled out a cable from his body. Then, using his hands, he opened the chest of the thunderbolt fire and connected an old battery from his hand to it. Su Qi curiously squatted beside. What's up? Is it anemic? Although mechanical life forms do not have flesh and blood. Old Wang paused. You could consider this as anemia. Energy is the lifeblood of mechanical life forms, the foundation of everything. Without it, it decays, rusts. Beep, beep, beep. At that moment, the battery emitted a warning red light. Insufficient energy. Insufficient energy. Old Wang looked embarrassed. Sorry. Shandian pulled it out and plugged it into himself. I still have some energy. Use mine first. Nicknamed Thunderbolt Fire, the mechanical life form's eyes slowly flickered with a speck of light, gradually regaining some energy. Old Wang sighed. Wouldn't you rather go into hibernation? Thunderbolt Fire shook its head, its voice calm. If I went into hibernation, then there would be nobody to work on the blueprints anymore. I can hold on. Also, who is this? It looked towards Su Qi, its eyes automatically analyzing the power level, flashing Su Qi's information, but finding no data on him. Hello? I am commonly known as Sect Leader Su. All right, Sect Leader Su. My name is Thunderbolt Fire. Thunderbolt Fire was also a straightforward mechanical man. Su Chi expressed his interest. You guys should have ways to secretly transport energy stones out of the mining area, even if only a small amount, but it shouldn't have come to this. Their technology could shield the power of the Black Spark Legion. After all, they were also part of the mechanical life. Old Wang sighed again. Because the cost is very high. Ordinary energy stones are highly impure and need to be precisely processed before they can be used. Otherwise, they will contract mechanical diseases and lead to extremely serious consequences. So the small amount of ordinary energy stones consumes more energy in purification than they provide. Su Chi nodded. I see. And the one energy stone you have is of extremely high purity. That's why I used up all the energy I had saved, barely passed the check, and brought you out. The old man carefully put away the worn battery. Wait a second. Shandian blinked. What highly pure energy stone? Su Chi spread his hands. Probably this one. A blue and white pure energy stone appeared in Su Chi's palm. Although mechanical life forms do not breathe, Su Chi could clearly feel them all taking a deep breath, their eyes filled with shock. Extremely high purity energy, Thunderbolt Fire muttered. May I take a look at it, respected sect leader Su? See, that is what high emotional intelligence looks like. Su Chi tossed it over. Frightened, Shandian and Thunderbolt Fire hurriedly reached out to catch it. Shandian's scanning light swept over it. Though my scanner is not error-free, this energy stone is nearly 100% pure. Sect leader Su, where did you get it? Found it in the mining area. I see. Old Wang? Can't you guys at least be a bit skeptical, just believing it like that? He sighed, knowing well that mechanical life forms naturally also harbored cunning and dangerous ones, but most were straightforward without too many tricks. He generally wouldn't bring anyone here, only offering batteries and such to those he respected, facilitating mutual help in the city. After all, they couldn't appear within the city. Present-world adventurers wanted to leave, collecting battery energy, exchanging certain technologies, seeking ways to escape. However, so far, none have succeeded. At that moment, Thunderbolt Fire suddenly projected a holographic blueprint. What is this? Su Chi curiously asked. This is my core structure, includes the encryption channels of various circuits and the core circuitry. Thunderbolt Fire looked seriously at Su Chi. Having the blueprint means controlling me. Then what? Su Chi seemed to understand its intention. I am a combat mechanical life form. I can become the most powerful weapon at your command. So, respected sect leader Su, its eyes with a resolute red glow and flickering, I want to trade myself for that energy stone. Upon his words, Su Chi raised his eyebrows. Old Wang's eyes widened even more. Shandian stretched out a paw to stop him, but weakly let it fall, as Thunderbolt Fire shook its head at it. We both know how important this energy stone is to us right now. Thunderbolt Fire. Shandian clenched its mechanical claws. Su Chi, however, let out a light chuckle. Wait a moment. You're making me out to be some big bully coercing a poor girl into a sale. He waved his hand. Forget the contract. This energy stone was originally picked up anyway, acquired by a fluke, and of no use to me. You seem to need it badly, so go ahead and use it. Old Wang looked at Su Chi with some surprise. To be honest, both he and his mechanical companions had the same thought. They must get their hands on that energy stone. They had prepared for the possibility that the other party would demand an exorbitant price. But they didn't expect Thunderbolt Fire to be so straightforward, offering itself up as collateral. And they never imagined Su Chi would ask for nothing in return. You lad, Old Wang gave a thumbs up, are a good person. What a relief. This was the first time someone had called him a good person after countless instances. It was incredibly touching. Although his real intention was to cast a long line to catch a big fish, it didn't matter. An energy stone was nothing to him, and a mechanical life's contract of servitude even less so. The divine machinery kingdom had crumbled, and it was highly likely that these were the last remnants of that world. As the sole control of the heart of divine weapon, action was naturally expected. The Hustler sect did indeed need a division of mechanical life. However, Su Qi saw that Shandian and Thunderbolt Fire were not using it to restore their own energy, but instead took out a protective case, quite precise despite being amidst rubbish, and carefully placed it inside. "You're not using it?" Shandian shook its head. "Someone needs it more than we do." "In that case," Thunderbolt Fire solemnly said, "please come with us. Since you've given us a gift, naturally we will reciprocate." "All right." Su Qi was indifferent to their reciprocation. As the heart of divine weapon, he possessed already contained the secrets of the entire divine machinery kingdom, and Xiao Meng would eventually gain control of it step by step. He was merely curious. For a place on the brink of collapse, the energy stone was undoubtedly like sending coal in a snowstorm, a life-saving straw, but they were not using it for themselves. The two beings and two machines headed towards the interior. Su Qi also saw other mechanical life. It was like entering a company on the verge of bankruptcy. Each mechanical entity moved as sluggishly as Thunderbolt Fire, joints creaking, energy dimly red. Due to the lack of energy, our companions in the base have all entered a state of extremely low energy consumption. At the same time, Shandian looked at a large number of transparent, worn-out pods. "A lot more of our companions have entered hibernation." Su Qi glanced over them, and to be honest, there was no small number of mechanical life forms underground, but the majority had entered standby hibernation mode. We're all beings oppressed and hunted by the dark spark, and due to the lack of energy, although everyone is elite, it's becoming difficult to sustain. Thunderbolt Fire said softly, "Falling into hibernation means it's not so simple to restart again. Of course, there are humans too, people from the past like Old Wang, who stand with us hand in hand. We also reach out to adventurers from the present world. Although our interactions aren't deep, everyone has their needs. Indeed, there were other humans here. Like Old Wang, they all came from an ancient era and bore traces of mechanical modification. Their relationships with the mechanical life were completely different from those of real living beings. Adventurers from the present world?" Someone's eyes flickered. Many took notice of the young man that Shandian and Thunderbolt Fire, along with Old Wang, had brought. How did he end up here? They looked weary and puzzled. After all, everyone had come here after a day of mining. However, they did not ask further. Everyone was busy assembling and adjusting. Time was of the essence. Old Wang said in a low voice, "Most of our people from the past were ordinary sequencers. If it weren't for the modifications, we would have probably died in the mines." He looked at the still active mechanical life forms around, "And the rest of us are all persisting for hope." Su Qi watched the scene and spoke gently. "So the question arises, what is your hope? If we're just looking at the current situation, you seem to have no chance or hope against the all-controlling black spark." Old Wang put his hand on Su Qi's shoulder and whispered, "Kid, can't you be a bit more tactful with your words?" He gestured. "Tactful. Get it? Then I will phrase it more delicately." Su Qi looked at them. "Even without the black spark intervening, you are on the brink of collapse, of self-destruction. I wondered why you don't join forces with adventurers from the present world. Now I see clearly, mechanical life without energy are a hair's breadth away from becoming defunct, from destruction." He murmured to himself, "To adventurers, benefits and value are what they need, and burdens clearly don't fall into that category." Old Wang's eyes widened. "You lad!" The expressions of those around were somewhat indignant. Though Su Qi was responding to Old Wang, his voice was not concealed. It was like a sharp sword piercing through their current situation. Shandian and Thunderbolt Fire only fell silent, while the other mechanical lives silently turned their gaze towards Su Qi, unable to refute because Su Qi was right. "You!" Another mecha stepped forward with heavy steps towards Su Qi, its body silvery white and several meters tall. Yet, it exuded a calm and thick oppressive aura. Its eyes, filled with boundless aura, looked down on Su Qi. "In our past battles, we experienced countless life and death moments. For us, there was never a dead end as everyone used their utmost strength. You, an outsider. Are you oversimplifying everything? But Su Chi did not care how the people around him viewed it. He gently said, "Perhaps because I've seen too much. I don't hope that my gifts are merely for helping you guys hang on to life or recharge." He snapped his fingers, and a cluster of starlight appeared at his fingertips. Just like this starfire, in the collapsing dark, I also want to see it transform into something with the value and potential of the sun. Under everyone's astonished gaze, the starfire in Su Chi's hand instantly expanded, illuminating the entire underground area. The usually dark underground city, kept dim to save energy, was instantly dazzling. That's the cool thing about starfire. The light was more than adequate. The visual impact was also enough, and importantly, it didn't cost a dime. So, don't show me junk anymore. And let me ask again, what exactly is your hope? Su Chi gently said. If there is none, then sorry, I need to leave and seek others who truly have value, who can resist. Everyone's expression fell silent, and the atmosphere became somewhat tense. Su Chi took in this scene but did not speak. He didn't have the time or the patience to do something. For serious illnesses, drastic measures are required. The hefty mecha in front of him slightly leaned over. I am Li Batian, your name. Su Buxian outside. People honorably address me as sect hierarch. All right, Su Buxian. It slowly turned. You have convinced me, now follow me. Shandian and Thunderbolt Fire looked at each other. Captain, you're coming too. Including Lao Wang. They hesitated, then followed along. Lao Wang nudged Su Chi. Hey, are you secretly going to slip me some spirit coins? Lao Wang shook his head helplessly and sighed softly beside Su Chi. Are you joking? He was also a seasoned hand, with experiences and age obvious for all to see. Su Chi's words went straight to the painful spot and also suggested something that seemed to be able to ignite the light of starfire. Su Chi paused. Guess. Lao Wang. Guess if I guess or not, guessing my ass. He breathed out, his face wrinkled with a hint of fatigue. Anyhow, you're talking too big. Don't underestimate everything here. They were heading deeper inside, through an old corridor that was clean, surrounded by large, thick cables wrapping around like giant pipes, leading to a massive metal door. Boom! Li Batian reached out, grabbed the bottom of the metal door, and tried to lift it with some difficulty. But the energy on his body flickered, and the door suddenly dropped a few inches. Shandian and Thunderbolt Fire's eyes widened slightly with surprise. They didn't expect that even the most powerful Li Batian had become this weak now. Help out! Including Lao Wang. All of them immediately rushed up. And the next moment, bang! Su Chi placed one hand on the heavy door weighing several tons and directly pushed it up. I want to make a suggestion, and that is, stop designing doors like this when none of you have any energy. Old Wang looked at the door that Su Chi had pushed open with a slap, somewhat taken aback. Your strength. Shandian and Thunderbolt Fire were also surprised. You weren't affected by the dark matter field. Dark matter field? That is a very powerful high-order product of the Black Spark. The strength of all flesh and blood creatures will be suppressed by 99%. Su Chi then understood what had temporarily sealed off his strength. Li Batian slowly said, It must be that you absorbed the source energy from that energy stone. Pure energy can resist the suppression of this dark matter field. Although it cannot fully recover, it will reduce the impact. Su Chi paused, so that was it. Additionally, could there be a possibility that this is merely 1% of my strength? Let's go. Li Batian was the first to step in, his heavy footsteps surprisingly steady and light. Next, you will see our true hope. The space inside was extremely vast, like a huge laboratory, with numerous cables extending from all directions. Su Chi looked over. A massive amount of extremely thick cables, which were connected to a nearly 100-meter-tall gigantic mecha. It was fixed in the middle by numerous protective frames. Its immobile posture akin to that of a war god. There was a completely different kind of oppressive feeling. At the same time, Su Qi also noticed that this war-godlike mechanical giant showed signs of severe damage. Half of its machinery shattered, and although the other half seemed intact, it had many damaged spots, connected to countless messy cables. This scene appeared as if being infused for a severe illness. Only this illness not being fatal yet seemed like a miracle. "This is our leader," said Li Batian in a deep voice. "This is also our current hope." Old Wang seemed somewhat conflicted. "Those of us who are still alive are doing our utmost to repair all the injuries." Su Qi's gaze moved around. Indeed, many places were supported by scaffolding and various tools, and there were signs of repairs everywhere. It's no surprise. In a place filled with junk, everyone was busy, holding their breath, selecting and assembling various parts, all to repair the mechanical giant in front of them. This was their hope. Li Batian looked at Thunderbolt Fire and Shandian. The two nodded, carefully took out the energy stone box they had gotten from Su Qi earlier, and then Shandian clasped it in his mouth and swiftly started running, magnetic force circling around his feet, allowing him to easily approach the vertical surface of the mechanical giant's body from below. Pretty fast. No wonder his name is Shandian. Su Qi watched as Shandian reached the chest of the mechanical giant in just a few seconds. Old Wang moved his lips but ended up not saying anything. He just sighed internally. "Young man, you already know that energy is everything for a mechanical life, yet you don't understand that without energy, they are just in their weakest, most powerless form. Only with sufficient energy, their ultimate form will only shock you." Su Qi glanced at Old Wang, then slowly withdrew his gaze. He was comparing the strengths and weaknesses of the Hustler's #1 machine and mechanical life. He was sure there were similarities and differences between the Hustler's #1 machine and mechanical life. Perhaps he could try to apply the designs or technologies from the Heart of Divine Weapon obtained by Xiao Meng to the Hustler's #1 machine. At this moment, Shandian had taken the energy stone out of the box, his expression somewhat solemn, pressing it in place. Due to insufficient instruments, it was only clear that the energy stone was of very high purity. It was impossible to know how much energy was within. After inserting it into the chest reactor, the next instant, the energy stone began emitting an extremely strong glow. "What abundant energy!" Thunderbolt Fire was somewhat shocked. Old Wang excitedly said, "Look, the leader's body." Under this flood of powerful energy, the damaged parts of the mechanical giant were self-restoring, numerous components reassembling from particle form. "That's also possible." Su Qi paused. Li Batian was also somewhat surprised, but his emotion was very steady. He gravely said, "That's how mechanical life is. As long as the core chip isn't destroyed and there is sufficient energy, they can reassemble."